नमस्ते। आयाम नाशिक द्वारा आयोजित गोदावरी संवाद के इस 5वें सत्र में मैं कल्पेश कुलकर्णी आप सभी का तहे दिल से स्वागत करता हूं। आज इस सत्र में हम भारत को विदेशी मीडिया के नज़रिए से देखेंगे, एक नए दृष्टिकोण से अपने देश को जानेंगे। विदेशी मीडिया में भारत की छवि क्या है, जानने के लिए हमारे वक्ता का स्वागत करते हैं जो इस विषय पर अपने विचार प्रकट करेंगे। मैं मंच पर बुलाना चाहूँगा वरिष्ठ पत्रकार और एडिटर जिनकी कहानी सुनाने की कला अद्वितीय है, ऐसे श्री आनंद नरसिम्हन जी को। आपका फिर से बहुत बहुत स्वागत है सर। इसी के साथ इस सेशन के सूत्र आपके हाथों में मैं सौंपता हूं।
चेक। नमस्कार, कसा काय नाशिक? बरं आहे? खूप छान आयोजन केलंय, आभार मानतो that you invited me here. मुंबई में पढ़ा हूँ तो मराठी अच्छे से समझता है पर बोलना भूल गया। क्यों? पिछले 8-10 साल से उधर दिल्ली में चले गए तो वहाँ हिंदी ज़्यादा है, मराठी कम। पर अभी भी जब भी मराठी में कुछ भी बात नहीं आती है और वो हिंदी में चलना होता है, इंग्लिश चैनल में चलना होता है। उस दिन देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी मराठी में बोल रहे थे तो इमीडिएटली ट्रांसलेशन मैं करूँगा, मेरे को अच्छा लगता है करना। और फिर वो तो अरे सर आप तो साउथ इंडियन है, आप मराठी कैसे जानते हैं? ऐसे देश के अलग अलग कोनों में जाके रहोगे, वहाँ की संस्कृति संस्कार सीखोगे, वहाँ की लोकल लोगों से बात करोगे तो आपको वहाँ की भाषा भी आ जाएगी। सही है। पर बहुत अच्छा आयोजन। डॉक्टर केलकर, थैंक यू वेरी मच। मिलिंद जी और आपकी जो पूरी टीम है, बहुत बहुत आभार। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दिस टाइम एंड फॉर हैविंग मी हियर। विषय बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है, फॉरेन मीडिया एंड इट्स पर्सपेक्टिव अबाउट भारत। अब ये फॉरेन मीडिया कौन है? आपके हिसाब से ये फॉरेन मीडिया कौन है? और पर वो क्या लिखते हैं, वो हमारे लिए इंपॉर्टेंट क्यों है? कभी आपने सोचा है कि हम लोग वहाँ की जो भी चैनल्स हैं या जो भी पब्लिकेशंस हैं और ये फॉरेन मीडिया में हम इस तरफ नहीं देख रहे हैं, हम रूस की तरफ नहीं देख रहे हैं, हाँ चीन की तरफ अब देखना शुरू किया है, यूरोप की तरफ तो हम देखते ही नहीं है। हमारा पूरा फोकस जो है ट्रांस अटलांटिक है। आप समझ रहे हैं क्यों? वो हमारे लिए बेंचमार्क क्यों है, या वो हमारे बारे में क्या सोचते हैं, ये हमारे लिए इंपॉर्टेंट क्यों है? व्हाई इज इट इंपॉर्टेंट टू अस? व्हाई इज व्हाट जापान, द ईस्ट, what it thinks about us, why is it not important to us? Is that not foreign? Is that not foreign? Do we even know what certain German publications and French publications have been writing about us? We don't care. But that's where narratives are being set about our country. And a lot of times, those are really, really tough, non-palatable, and factually wrong, devoid of facts narratives. Now, where does this perspective then come? This perspective, we got to dial back, at least from my point of view, to World War II. Post 1945, and when this entire global reset happened, there was control and hegemony that was centered around the USA. And the Allied powers were driven by what the US narrative was. So if you read what happened with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose post 1945, if you read what's been chronicled by Chandrachud Ghosh and Anuj Dhar, very detailed chronicling, you will realize the involvement of the CIA. If you read, so it was involved in our country from then. If we read what happened in 1971, there was involvement of the CIA. If we read what happened in 1962, 1965, the wars that we fought, albeit with China, there was involvement of the CIA. Our biggest war was has been with a country, or the narrative fighting has been with a country which is not even Gujarat and Maharashtra put together. Correct? But it said that we are equal to a nation like Bharat. And we would immediately look and compare ourselves with a nation that is so small and right next door, a very pesky neighbor. Today is in doldrums. Correct? But now, today, we are correct saying, comparing ourselves with who? With China. We are comparing ourselves with nations which are our size, either in terms of population, or in terms of wealth creation, or in terms of potential market size, etc. We are trying to look up. Otherwise, we are all looking down. So that was the perspective that was expected of Bharat to always have. A nation that is lots of resources, which is there for some hegemonistic forces to plunder. It's the same colonial mindset. Now, there are others who would know the facts and the numbers so much better, but from the first war of independence, that is 1857, that triggered something in our country among the colonizers. What it triggered? That we need to loot and plunder this country, the sooner than later. So between 1880s till 1920s, most of Bharat's wealth was carted out by those who said that we build the railways for you, we build the telegraph or the post offices for you, we built the ports for you. They didn't build it for us. They built it so that they can cart things out of our country faster. So a nation that was, even when it was colonized, contributing to nearly 20% of the world's GDP, was reduced in a span of 50, 60 years to contributing just 2%. So we were looted, plundered. So now we had to vacate because the nations who fought the wars for the Allied forces, which were the boots that landed first on the French shores and the Italian shores, they say British forces or the Allied forces. But who are those? The soldiers were all, they were Bharatiya. See? See, our first response is to say Indians. Our response is not to say Bharatiya. That's the perspective that the West or foreign media wants to have. This Western hegemonistic control over soft and hard aspects of our country. There is a deep-rooted history to it. That they would like, they decide that we are a nation of snake charmers. Those who can walk on tight ropes. But when we give them solutions to AI, and when we give them digital certificates for vaccination, when unke yahan parcha bhi theek se nahi bat raha, and when we conduct an election with 640 million votes in 48 hours, the results are out, and they are still counting the votes in some of the states because they will not go beyond a ballot system. And they don't know how many illegals and and aliens have actually voted in this election. They want us to still believe that we are inferior, and they've got the election system right. They've got their political system right. There are only two sides there. Yet they don't know, they can't decide. They took 2 months to fix an election. We've got 2,500 parties, political parties, and we still have proper election. How is that possible? You can't be happy about it. You're not allowed to think good about it. We are a nation of 1.4 billion. So if 100,000 die during COVID, oh my God. And a nation of 300 million and more than 4 lakh have died, nobody will talk about it. You see these differences? This is how they try and tell you what to think, how to think, what to read, how to read, because we are the ones who are supposed to decide. You know, this mentality that 60,000 Brits were able to rule a nation with 1 lakh forces of Indians, largely Indians, and they could control an entire nation. So if you could do that then, we can still control a nation of 1.4 billion. So there is a history to this entire thought process. And those narratives still start. And sadly, but truly, many of us who leave this country and go there thinking the education system is better there, they get better education, they make a better life, and they go there, and then go there, and then they come back and they turn around and say, this country is bad. They contribute to those articles. And who has sent them there? Some of us who are sitting here. आप लोगों ने कमाया, आप लोग तो इधर के स्कूल सिस्टम से तैयार होके आए, अच्छा खासा अपना घर बना लिया, बिजनेस चल रहा है या काम किया, रिटायरमेंट पेंशन लिया, बच्चों को बाहर भेज दिया. भेजा ना आपने, क्यों? वहां की लाइफ बेटर है. तो अगर आप ही अपने बच्चे को बोल रहे हो वहां की लाइफ बेटर है, तो वहां की मीडिया भी बोलेगी ना कि भारत खराब है. So, aren't schools better than when a lot of us were younger? At least schools are better. There are more options. The education system has also evolved. Yet we want to send we are training our children. कहाँ CBSE ISC में नहीं पढ़ा? IB कब से शुरू हो रहा है? स्कूल में 5th standard से चलो इधर ही बच्चे को. Aren't we doing it? We are playing into their hands. And today there are those who have forgotten their roots, who have left this country, sitting there and they're writing paeans about this country and why this country is gone. And they are sitting there and saying, अच्छा, यहाँ के शमशान के ऊपर ड्रोन उड़ाओ और सिर्फ उन शमशानों को दिखाओ. Whereas they will sit there and say, don't show those graves where 3 people are being dug or 3 people are being buried in the same grave. No, because that's disrespecting the privacy and the sentiment of those families who have lost a loved one. And here again we will say the same thing. कि हमारे घाटों को तो दिखाना चाहिए, उधर का नहीं दिखाना चाहिए, उनको बुरा लगेगा. Have you all not thought and done this? So then, who's deciding this perspective? Is the foreign media dictating this perspective, or are we allowing them to decide and dictate this? Why? Why? आपके महीने में आपके घर आपके अकाउंट में कितना पैसा आ रहा है आपको पता है. आप कितना खर्चा कर रहे हैं आपको पता है. आपका दोस्त किससे मिल रहा है, आपका परिवार कहाँ किसके साथ जा रहा है, कहाँ जा रहा है, ये सब आपको पता है. लेकिन आपके देश के बारे में और आपकी सोच को कौन डिसाइड कर रहा है, कैसे कर रहा है, इसका आपको फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा. और आप उनको सब्सक्राइब करने के लिए पैसा देने को तैयार है. यू विल पे to subscribe to The Economist, subscribe to other platforms abroad, but you will not pay to download an Indian media platform. Why? Okay, 9 out of 10 people यहाँ पर जितने लोग खड़े हैं, अगर मैं आपको कहूं कि name the top media channel in the world, how many of you will honestly think of an Indian channel? Your child wants to pursue journalism. How many of you will say, read these Indian media platforms, Bharatiya media platforms? क्यों मराठी में जर्नलिज्म नहीं होता है? हाँ, तमिल में जर्नलिज्म नहीं होता है, हिंदी में जर्नलिज्म नहीं होता है. भारतीय भाषाओं में कोई भी चैनल, कोई भी जर्नलिस्ट ऐसा नहीं है जिसको कि आप फॉलो कर सकें. तो हमारा खुद का पर्सपेक्टिव इतना घुमा हुआ है हमारे बारे में, तो वो तो कुछ भी लिखेंगे हम मान लेंगे ना. कुछ गलत कह रहा हूं? तो आप में से कितने लोग भारत के भारतीय जर्नलिस्ट के नाम आपको पता है जो बहुत बढ़िया लिखते हैं, ओपिनियन पीसेस उनके आप रेगुलरली पढ़ते हैं, और आपने अपने बच्चों को कहा है कि डिजिटल में इनकी इस प्लेटफॉर्म पर ये जो आर्टिकल्स लिखते हैं इनको आप फॉलो कीजिए? आप में से कितनों ने कहा है कि देखो अगर आपको न्यूज़ देखना है तो ये प्लेटफॉर्म्स इंडियन प्लेटफॉर्म्स है, भारतीय प्लेटफॉर्म्स है, इनको आप फॉलो कीजिए? कहाँ भारत में कुछ गड़बड़ हुआ है और हम इंग्लिश चैनल, इंग्लिश फॉरेन मीडिया क्या उसके बारे में रिपोर्ट कर रहा है उसको फॉलो करना चाहते हैं. Why? What do they have to say about UPI? It's my UPI. Why do I need to know what they say? Huh? I'll see what we're doing, right? Who is using UPI? Are they using or are we using? We are using. So who should you understand from how does this unified payment interface, how many transactions are being done, what is the value, how much is going on, what is going on? Why would you want to go and look at another That's how they define the narrative. And this narrative, and then what happens? We all look at them as independent. Have we really tried to find out, are they really independent? Who's funding them? Now, BBC report, Pandit Satish Sharma and his team, they've done a full documentary on the BBC. The British people are actually paying for or funding the BBC. 20 pounds or somewhere per month is going towards, if I've got the number right, I'm subject to correction. But they are paying for the BBC's international platform, which comes under the MEA. So, is that independent? Two people today are going to be stripped of their order and their honor. Why? Because they raised the issue of Bangladesh Hindus, and the other one perceivedly is close to Prime Minister Narendra Modi or is supportive of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So they're stripping them of their order. Are any of us turning around and asking the UK, how dare? Does it matter to us? Why? We're not supposed to ask. But the same thing, if we tell certain people, तुम लोग यहाँ बहुत साल रह चुके हो, तुम्हारा हो गया है, 20 साल है, अब घर खाली करो क्योंकि हमको यहाँ MPs को ठहराना है, तो अवार्ड वापसी हो गई, तो what is foreign media saying about award वापसी in India? यहाँ तो award वापसी नहीं है, somebody is giving it up. They are actually taking it away from you. How many of us have turned around? There is a reason why they are able to fix these narratives about us and they fix a perspective. What is the perspective? This is a country with great potential. This is a country with great talent. This is a country with great resources. But this is a country that should not be allowed to stand on its own. This is a country which is supposed to be feeder service for us. We will take the talent from here, give them good money and tell them to work there. They will continue to be our slaves. They will continue to follow the narrative we dictate. They will continue to follow the diktats. They will continue to follow our hegemonistic ways in terms of economics, politics, dynamics, everything. And anybody who stands up to change that, we will change that person. And the media is used. Now a channel or a platform which says 10, 15 years later that there was no WMD in Iraq, and still claims to be the benchmark of independent journalism. And we say, all right, कोई बात नहीं, होती है, गलतियां सबसे होती हैं. And here we are ready to discredit anybody whose teammate or somebody has put a wrong spelling or just made a factual, human error, which happens. And uske baad decide kar liya, oh, you can't trust these people. So if we ourselves are not ready to trust, if we ourselves are not ready to think about consciously investing only in what is Bharatiya, how will we ever trust and how will we ever turn around and say, no, you've got to change your perspective? See, that perspective will change only when this perspective changes. Tell me one platform. Imagine, 7.5 decades old nation. We are now fast moving towards becoming the 3rd largest economy. Not so long back, we were the 10th largest economy. Do we have a global platform that takes the message of Bharat to the world and tells the world how to think like Bharat? Have we ever turned around and asked, who's taking our story abroad? Who's telling the world what we believe about what is happening in our country, and this is the fact, and this is what we believe is happening in your country? That's exactly what BBC is doing. That's exactly what some of the other media, say Al Jazeera, CGTN, Russia Today, they're all doing the same thing. They're all state-backed entities, right? All state-backed entities, all supposed to be perceivedly benchmarks of journalism, but they're present everywhere. And they are saying, China is great. Oh, India is struggling. You know, one street protest in one corner of our country, they don't even know the size of our country, how large we are. यहाँ नासिक में एक छोटी गली में गोंधळ हो गया, पूरा नासिक खराब है. Correct? But वहाँ पे कुछ, oh, it's just a small thing. Let's focus on what's happening in your place. You know, in our country, do we have youngsters walking into schools and shooting down innocent children? No. But in every other school, it is happening in every other state in the US of A. But people are supposed to be safe there, not here. See? Are we going out and openly reporting what's happening there? Are we going out and openly reporting what happened in France? Are we going out and openly reporting what happened in Leicester, in all these places, and how people took law into their own hands and it was anarchy on the streets? But if there is one farmer protest and there is a Shambhu border and it's headlined anarchy in India, and we are going, oh, yaar, seriously, if they are saying it, then it is too bad. And this is when we are driving comfortably all the way from Pune to Nashik, no problems on the road, but anarchy in our country. See? And this is something which comes repeatedly through the conversations through the day. Everybody has touched upon this aspect of mindset. This mindset is still colonial. This mindset is still not saying, let me add Marathi to English. This mindset is saying, let me add English to Marathi. This mindset is saying, let me add English to Hindi. We are not saying, let's add Hindi to English. Correct? I'm not saying don't speak in English, but we can Indianize the English, right? We can Indianize the thought process. We can continue to have an original thought process even if the language is a global language. A language is something which allows us to stand up and talk anywhere and fix a narrative. We can turn around and say somebody who cannot speak English does not mean that person is not intelligent. This is again what foreign media tells you. You can't speak English, that means you're dumb. You know, captain of the country for a team. He's leading the country. He's taken the team to a podium finish or to a top finish, but can't speak English. Does that mean that person's useless? स्कूल में अंग्रेजी नहीं सीखी? अरे क्यों? स्कूल में हिंदी सीखी भाई, स्कूल में गणित सीखा, स्कूल में अर्थशास्त्र सीखा, स्कूल में मैंने विज्ञान सीखा, अपनी भाषा में सीखा, तो उसमें क्या मैं बुद्धू हो गया? But again, the same narrative which is allowed. Unless the headline is in English, unless you are speaking in English, it's not going to happen. So that percolates back here, and we allow that perspective, that narrative to happen, that till the time this country starts speaking in English, and if the person speaks English, then that person should not be in India. That person should be working elsewhere as a slave in another country. Are we all of us not guilty of this? I'm guilty of this. I'm a Tamilian. In my house, my daughter understands Tamil. My son doesn't speak or understand Tamil. Why? Because our communication language has become English and Hindi. I realize that there is an erosion of the language, but at least I'm sure that there is no erosion of the values. Correct. The same shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita, the same shlokas from our Shastras, the same teachings from our Puranas, the same stories. They may not read it in Hindi, they may not read it in Sanskrit, but they can read it in Roman and understand the core meaning of it, right? And then at least change this perspective. I seriously believe that there's no point blaming anybody else about what their perspective is. When we ourselves are funneling that thought from here, we are allowing them to turn around and say, we continuously do so. We continuously do so. We have become classist in our own head, that when we see a person well dressed, we'll say, hi, how are you? When we see a person not so well dressed, we slip into the local language. And our children follow the same. Assuming that it's down market to speak in the local language to somebody who looks little polished and well dressed and perhaps well to do. And again, it is insulting. उसको क्या समझेगा English? तो चलो हिंदी में बात करते हैं. See, we are using this classist attitude. We are all guilty of it. And that's exactly that perspective that the foreign media uses against us. And we do not go and challenge them because we are not present there. You know how many, this is something somebody told me, and I'm going to end with this in the next 4-5 minutes. The point is, when I went to Vienna, okay, UN, this place, Geneva. I was in Geneva, and then at The Hague, okay, in Netherlands. Both places, the Chinese have 15 reporters. The Russians have 10 to 12 reporters. The Americans have again got 10 to 15 reporters, covering every aspect of the UN and actively tracking them, saying who's saying what. European nations, the Germans have presence there, 5 to 6 reporters, the Spanish, the Italian, UK, the Brits, all of them have. The Africans, the Koreans, the Japanese, they all have actively writing reporters who report from there on a daily basis. Both The Hague and the UN in Geneva. Guess who does not have a single reporter deployed from state media? I'm not even talking foreign media or private media. State media. This is all state media. So you know what these journalists are doing there, right? On behalf of their state, as part of state media. Actively trying to force a particular narrative about their country and counter anything that they believe is going to hurt the nation's interests. We don't have a single presence. We don't have a solid presence, and we don't even go ahead and actively establish our presence there. And you know who are people who are sitting there and writing about Bharat? Those who have a bee in a bonnet about Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the direction that Bharat is taking post-2014. Those are going to write the story about Bharat. We can very well guess what they're going to write. These are things we need to fix. We are not doing enough there to fix the perspective here. And we are not doing enough here so that the perspective is fixed there. It's both ways. I hope you get me. We are not changing the mindset of how we are bringing up our children and what they should think about our country. We are not working actively to improve the education system of this country. We are not saying that we are not going to send children abroad. We're going to make sure that we have the best universities, but more than that, we have the best shikshaks, the best teachers. More than 1 lakh teachers is a shortage in our schools, in our education system. In the last 10 years, there are 2 education ministers, at least one of them I know, who's on public record to say, throughout my term, I didn't change a single word nor a single chapter of any textbook. So who should we turn around and ask questions of? And why do I say education? Because these are the people who become your reporters, right? These are the people who become your anchors, right? These are the people who become your beat experts. And what are we teaching them? What are we teaching them? So they are coming with a perspective itself which says that, oh, they are superior, we are inferior. We are supposed to listen to them and we should never talk back to them and say anything to them because we don't do our things. We don't do it right. What they take 6 people to do, we can do it with 2 people. That's how effective we are. But we don't believe in ourselves because we are not trained to be that way. And where we are supposed to be there to correct the narrative, we are not. We don't have a solid beat reporter who's reporting regularly and sending news which is going viral in our country from Russia. We don't have anybody who's actively reporting from China. We don't have anybody actively reporting from Japan, which is making headlines here. And we are not actively propagating state media. We all get Doordarshan, nobody watches it. So if we are not using the tools in our hand to change the perspective about our country, how can we change anybody else and the foreign media and its perspective about Bharat? But here is what's happening. You know, जब किसी सोच का, किसी व्यक्ति वस्तु का समय आ जाता है ना, तो फिर आप कुछ भी कर लो वो आके ही रहेगा. तो अब वो समय तो आ रहा है, जैसे पीएम कहते हैं, मोदी जी कहते हैं, यही समय है, सही समय है. पर वो भी है ना, वो कहते हैं ना, वो एक पर्टिकुलर आर्क है, एक होल है. आप घुस गए तो ठीक है, नहीं तो फिर वो होल बंद हो जाएगा. फिर उसके बाद फिर कितने साल बाद वो आपको मौका मिलेगा वो पता नहीं. सो वी गॉट टू फिक्स इट राइट. वी गॉट टू डू इट नाउ. एंड द वर्ल्ड रियलाइजेस that there is an awakening or a renaissance. I won't say renaissance. There's just a realization that is happening. In this country, a consciousness is growing. We need to feed into that consciousness. The Western media realizes it. There are efforts which are happening to correct it. There are efforts which are happening. There are changes which are happening there. There are changes which are happening in other places. We don't encourage those who are favorable to us. In foreign media, there is a lot of media that is very favorable to us. We don't even showcase them. We don't even do partnerships with them. We don't even try and feed into a narrative which will counterbalance a perspective which is lopsided and perhaps faulty. So, these are things we need to correct. And a lot of it starts with us. When I say us, not just journalists, but society as a whole. Point is, we need to have a strong state media, and openly unabashed, that talks only state policy, that talks what Bharat's vision is, and does it unabashedly and proudly. Private media, which is encouraged to go ahead and tell the Bharat story to the world. Point is that we need to, there is a fillip, there needs to be a certain big push. And of course, there has to be a solid backing financially, because it's all about economics also. All these state media and all these groups have got huge amount of funding. They're sitting on billions of dollars of funds. So you've got to take them on. You also have to have a robust backing. There is intent, all right. There is perhaps purpose, yes, but there's also got to be paisa. Right, I'm going to stop there and take your questions if we have time.
Good evening, sir.
Namaste.
You were saying about India needing a global news channel or a global news network. I think you, as a part of Viacom 18 and now with the Disney deal done, you are, I think, the most well-placed to get India on the world map on the news network side. So what are your views on that?
See, do I believe, yes, Network 18 and the News 18 network has potential? Yes. Do I believe our principals are keen on doing it? Yes. But one has to appreciate the business and the economics of it. Unless there is a strong state media, private media can only do that much. Okay, private media works on economics. News is a cost center. It's not a profit center. And it costs huge amounts of money.
But you have the resources
No, I have the resources, yes. But that resource is also because it's a conglomerate which is responsible for ensuring that there are profits and operational profits for everybody else. And these conglomerates, and when you have entities, private entities, they have certain limitations because of the fact that they are private entities. My case is that we need to have a very strong, robust state media that takes the story of Bharat to the world. And unless that state media is robust, private media will not be able to penetrate many markets. Because you will not have heft. I need to have heft, right? I can enter a particular market, but that market forces will also turn around and countermand me and make my life difficult there. Unless my state media presence is strong and there is a diplomatic push which happens. And that's when I'm able to enter those nations.
So something like Al Jazeera.
So Al Jazeera is state-backed. Correct, right? So I want, like the Prime Minister said, I would like to see Doordarshan bigger than an Al Jazeera, BBC or a CNN. That's what I'd like to see.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Namaste.
Namaskar. This is Shekhar Birde. Will you please name me any foreign media which is Bharat friendly?
Which is Bharat?
Friendly.
The Russians are.
Okay.
The Russians are. The Koreans are. The Japanese are. A lot of the Southeast Asian nations are. African nations are. And some of the media in Europe also is quite this one. See, as long as they're not politically corrupted, a lot of the foreign media, we don't actually focus on them. But they look to us, the Israeli media, very friendly to us. Yeah, sir. Huh? Sir, don't ask me questions to which you already know the answer. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. आपने एक बात बहुत अच्छी बात कही कि समय को जब आना है वो आकर ही रहता है, उसे कोई रोक नहीं सकता. तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि आज हमारा बहुत अच्छा समय चल रहा है कि हमें आपको सुनने का मौका मिला, क्योंकि
तो मैंने क्या कहा कि समय को जब जाना है तो वो जाकर भी रहता है तो
लेकिन आप ना जाओ सर. थैंक यू सो मच सर. ओके, सो चलो मूड लाइट करने के लिए थोड़ा सा और एक मैं चीज़ बता दूं कि सर आप पूरा फिल्म स्टार की तरह दिखते हैं तो फिल्मों में भी आ जाइए. जी, राइटर है, डायरेक्टर, वाह वाह वाह, बन जाएगी फिल्म. ओके, सो मूविंग ऑन. एकतर पुढे जाऊच आपण, त्याआधी इतक्या सुंदर सकाळपासून आत्तापर्यंत वक्त्यांनी आपल्याला इतकं एंगेज्ड ठेवलं, प्रत्येक गोष्टीत छोटं छोटं विश्लेषण करून अगदी आपल्याला सोपं करून सांगितलं, त्या सगळ्या वक्त्यांसाठी एकदा कडकडीत टाळ्या झाल्या पाहिजे. आपण एकटे असलो तरी हरकत नाही, पण आपल्या मागे कोणी येवो न येवो, जे आपल्याला करावंसं वाटतंय ते करण्यातच आपल्या जीवनाची सार्थकता आहे, असं म्हणत स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर यांच्या विचारांनीच हा सोहळा, याची निर्मिती ही सगळी झाली. आणि त्यांच्यासारखीच जाज्वल्य राष्ट्रभक्ती, जिद्द, धाडस आणि आपल्या प्रत्येक कार्यातून समाजाला प्रेरणा देणाऱ्या व्यक्तींना, त्यासोबतच सावरकरांच्या व्हॅल्यूजना आदर्श ठेवून उल्लेखनीय कामगिरी करणाऱ्यांना प्रदान केला जातो स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर सन्मान पुरस्कार. आणि या सोहळ्याची सुरुवात करताना मी मंचावर आमंत्रित करतो या कार्यक्रमाचे प्रमुख पाहुणे नाशिकचे माननीय जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलद शर्मा यांना. त्यासोबतच मी मंचावर आमंत्रित करतो स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर सन्मान पुरस्काराचे पुरस्कारार्थी डॉक्टर विक्रम संपत यांना. मी मंचावर आमंत्रित करतो रायटर, ब्लॉगर आणि गोदावरी संवादच्या क्रिएटिव्ह क्युरेटर शेफाली वैद्य यांना. आणि आयाम नाशिकचे प्रेसिडेंट श्री भरत केळकर हे आधीच मंचावर आहेत, त्यांचं पण मी मनापासून स्वागत करतो. मी विनंती करतो की कृपया आपण आसनस्थ व्हावं. मी आजचे प्रमुख पाहुणे माननीय जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलद शर्मा यांचा थोडक्यात परिचय करून देतो. माननीय जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलद शर्मा यांचं शालेय शिक्षण चंदीगडमध्ये झालं. त्यानंतर 2009मध्ये त्यांनी कुरुक्षेत्र युनिव्हर्सिटीमधून कम्प्युटर इंजिनिअरिंगमध्ये BTech पूर्ण केलं. नंतर त्यांच्या UPSCच्या फर्स्ट अटेम्प्टमध्ये त्यांचा ऑल इंडिया रँक 409 आला आणि त्यांना IRS इनडिरेक्ट टॅक्सेस अलोकेट करण्यात आलं होतं. मग पुन्हा अटेम्प्ट देऊन त्यांनी 2014 साली रँक 43 मिळवल्यामुळे त्यांची IAS ऑफिसर म्हणून नियुक्ती करण्यात आली. आणि कामाव्यतिरिक्त त्यांना वाचनाची आणि क्रिकेट, लॉन टेनिस खेळण्याची सुद्धा प्रचंड आवड आहे. तुम्ही आज आला याचा आम्हाला खरंच विशेष आनंद होतोय सर. मी विनंती करतो आयाम नाशिकचे प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर भरत केळकर यांना की त्यांनी माननीय जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलद शर्मा यांचा सत्कार करावा. धन्यवाद. आता आयाम नाशिकच्या पाठीशी खंबीरपणे उभे राहणारे प्रायोजक यांचा आपण सत्कार करणार आहोत. त्यांच्याबद्दल ग्रॅटिट्यूड फील करत आपण त्यांना सन्मानित करणार आहोत. सगळ्यात आधी मी मंचावर आमंत्रित करतो आपले प्रायोजक सारस्वत कोऑपरेटिव्ह बँककडून जे आता उपस्थित आहेत श्री जोशीजी यांना मी मंचावर आमंत्रित करतो. आणि मी विनंती करतो माननीय जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलद शर्मा की त्यांनी त्यांचा सत्कार करावा. सो मच सर. मी पुन्हा एकदा विनंती करतो माननीय जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलद शर्मा यांना की त्यांनी रिलायबल ऑटोटेक प्रायव्हेट लिमिटेड नाशिकचे डिरेक्टर माननीय श्री देवेंद्रजी बापट यांचा सत्कार करावा. खरंच प्रायोजकांच्या पाठिंब्याशिवाय हा शिवधनुष्य उचललाच जाऊ शकत नाही. खूप खूप धन्यवाद. मी पुन्हा एकदा सरांनाच विनंती करेन, श्री जलद शर्मा यांना, की त्यांनी गोगटे इलेक्ट्रो सिस्टम्स आणि जी लेगचे सर्वे सर्वा माननीय श्री विवेक गोगटे यांचा सत्कार करावा. त्यांना काही कारणानिमित्त जावं लागलं. सो मी पुन्हा एकदा सरांनाच विनंती करतो की त्यांनी 9 पल्स हॉस्पिटलचे संचालक डॉक्टर नागेश अघोर यांचा सत्कार करावा. थँक्यू सो मच सर. थँक्यू सो मच. मी सगळ्यांना आसनस्थ होण्याची विनंती करतो. इथे आलेल्या प्रत्येकाच्या मनात हा प्रश्न नक्की असेल की स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर सन्मान पुरस्कार यामागचा थॉट काय आहे, यामागची संकल्पना नक्की काय आहे, हा का दिला जातो, कोणाला दिला जातो. तर हे सगळं उलगडून सांगण्यासाठी मी मंचावर आमंत्रित करतो आयाम नाशिकचे अध्यक्ष डॉक्टर भरत केळकर यांना.
नमस्कार. जेव्हा आयाम नाशिकने गोदावरी संवाद चालू करायचं ठरवलं, त्याच वेळेला हा एक वेगळ्या पद्धतीने सगळ्यांकडे जीवनमूल्य जायला पाहिजे या उद्देशाने चालू केलं. आणि आपण सगळेजण नाशिकला स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर यांच्याविषयी विलक्षण आत्मीयता आणि भक्ती असलेले सर्वजण आहोत. स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकरांनी वेगवेगळ्या आयामांमध्ये त्यांचा ठसा समाजावरती आणि देशावरती ठसवलेला आहे. मग ते राष्ट्रप्रथम म्हणून असो, साहित्यिक म्हणून असो, राजकीय म्हणून असो, असे विविध अंगांनी त्यांनी हा ठसा उमटलेला आहे. म्हणून गेल्या वर्षी आपण राष्ट्रप्रथम म्हणजे आपल्या डोळ्यासमोर येतं सैनिकी म्हणून त्यावेळेस आपण लेफ्टनंट जनरल शेकटकर सर यांना हा मानाचा सन्मान देऊन आपण गौरवण्यात आलं होतं. ह्यावेळेस आपली थीम ही नॅरेटिव्ज आणि विमर्शाची आहे. तर अशा वेळेला स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकरांचं विमर्श हा साहित्यिक म्हणून काय असावं. 1857चं बंड म्हणून जे पहिला विमर्श होता तो 1857चं स्वातंत्र्य समर हे त्यांनी नॅरेटिव्ह म्हणजे विमर्श हा सेट केला. स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकरांचं साहित्यिक म्हणून अतिशय मोठं योगदान आहे. म्हणजे 1938 साली मराठी साहित्य संमेलनाचे ते अध्यक्ष होते आणि स्वातंत्र्यपूर्व काळामध्ये त्यांनी अध्यक्षपदावरून सांगितलं होतं, आत्ता फक्त लेखणीची गरज नाही, लेखणी तोडा आणि बंदुका हाती घ्या. एखादा विलक्षण प्रतिभेचा कवी ते असतील, निबंधकार असतील, जीवनदर्शन घडवणारे नाटककार आहेत, राजकीय आणि सामाजिक विषयावरती अनेक प्रकारचे कादंबरी लेखन त्यांनी केलेलं आहे, मोठे मोठे ग्रंथ लिहिलेले आहेत, इतिहासकार आहेत, भाषाशास्त्रज्ञ आहेत. भाषा शुद्धी म्हणजे नवीन चपकल शब्द जसे क्रमांक, प्राचार किंवा असे कित्येक शब्द आहेत त्यांचे तिथे. अशा पद्धतीने तिने भाषा शुद्धीचं पण काम केलं. हे एक धगधगतं अग्निकुंड आहे. साहित्यामधनं हे सगळीकडे जायला पाहिजे आणि ह्या मूल्यांवरती विश्वास ठेवणारा साहित्यिक म्हणून आज आपल्याला माननीय विक्रमजी संपत यांनी सुद्धा ऐतिहासिक संशोधन करून यांनी सुद्धा टिपू सुलतानाचा नॅरेटिव्ह आपल्यासमोर खरा समोर आणलेला आहे, सत्य समोर आणलेलं आहे. तर ह्यासाठीच हीच भूमिका घेऊन आपण दरवर्षी स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर सन्मान हा असा प्रदान करत असतो. धन्यवाद.
ज्यांना हा पुरस्कार प्रदान करण्यात येतोय असे डॉक्टर विक्रम संपत सर, पाहूयात त्यांचं एक छोटंसं एवी.
मैं ये किताब अपनी अम्मा को समर्पित करता हूँ. मातृशक्ति की इसी ऊर्जा और प्रेरणा से अपना समृद्ध जीवन व्यतीत करने वाले आज के अपने स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर सम्मान पुरस्कार के सम्माननीय पुरस्कारार्थी का नाम है डॉक्टर विक्रम संपत. कर्नाटक के बंगलुरु में आपका जन्म हुआ. पिताजी श्री संपत श्रीनिवासन और माताजी सुश्री नागमणि संपत के संस्करण में आपके जीवन की नींव रखी गई. तमिल पिता और मराठी माता, इन दो संस्कृतियों का सशक्त मिश्रण ये आपकी विरासत है. बंगलोर के अरबिंदो मेमोरियल स्कूल और बिशप कॉटन बॉयज स्कूल में आपने शालेय शिक्षा प्राप्त की. लौकिक शिक्षा के साथ साथ उम्र के 5वें साल से आपने कर्नाटक संगीत की साधना की. गुरु बॉम्बे जयश्री और गुरु जयंती कुमारेश, इनका आपको कर्नाटक संगीत में मार्गदर्शन रहा. इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग और गणित में मास्टर्स ऐसी दोहरी उपाधि आपने बिट्स पिलानी जैसे नामांकित शिक्षा संस्था से प्राप्त की. एसपी जैन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मैनेजमेंट एंड रिसर्च मुंबई से आपने एमबीए फाइनेंस किया. ऑस्ट्रेलिया स्थित यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ क्वींसलैंड से आपने संगीत और इतिहास में डॉक्टरेट प्राप्त की. आपके करियर की प्राथमिक शुरुआत बैंकिंग क्षेत्र से हुई. जीई कैपिटल, सिटी बैंक जैसे नामांकित आस्थापनाओं में आपने अपना योगदान दिया. आपके जीवन काल के निजी वर्तमान को देखते हुए पारंपरिक करियर में आपकी ज्यादा रुचि नहीं रही. ये आपकी उपलब्धियों की ओर देखने से प्रतीत होता है. साहित्य क्षेत्र में काम करना आपने अपनी अभिव्यक्ति का महत्वपूर्ण अंग बना लिया. इंग्लिश लिटरेचर में साहित्य एकेडमी का पहला युवा पुरस्कार आपको मिला है. नेहरू मेमोरियल म्यूजियम एंड लाइब्रेरी के सीनियर फेलो, इंदिरा गांधी नेशनल सेंटर फॉर आर्ट्स में आपने बतौर एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर जैसा योगदान भी दिया. भूतपूर्व राष्ट्रपति श्री प्रणब मुखर्जी ने राष्ट्रपति भवन में आपका निवासी लेखक तथा राइटर के रूप में चयन किया. प्रतिष्ठित रॉयल हिस्टोरिकल सोसाइटी की फेलोशिप से भी आप सम्मानित हैं. गाढ़े अभ्यासक और संशोधक के साथ साथ एक विशेष इतिहासकार के रूप में आपने अपनी पहचान पूरी दुनिया में बनाई है. झूठा इतिहास और उसका महिमा मंडन, ये आपके लिए कुछ विशेष लिखने की प्रेरणा रही. इसी प्रेरणा से इतिहास के कुछ दुर्लक्षित और उपेक्षित महान व्यक्तियों के सही और असली चरित्र को आपने अपने साहित्य द्वारा उजागर करने का सफल प्रयास किया. ये आपकी संपन्न उपलब्धि है. मैसूर के राजा वडियार स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर का जीवन चरित्र ये इसकी मिसाल है. मशहूर भारतीय शास्त्रीय गायिका गौहर जान, प्रख्यात वीणावादक एस बालचंद्र, इनका जीवन चरित्र भी आपने दुनिया के सामने लाया. और वर्तमान में टीपू सुल्तान का चरित्र भी विशेष चर्चा में है. संक्षिप्त समय में और संक्षिप्त प्रस्तुतिकरण में आपके सफल जीवन और आपकी कई सारी उपलब्धियां प्रस्तुत करना एक कठिन लक्ष्य है. तथापि इसे प्रस्तुत करने का हमारा ये प्रामाणिक प्रयास है. एक विशेष कार्य का जिक्र करना यहाँ अनिवार्य है. महाराष्ट्र राज्य के राजभवन में एक तहखाना है. अंग्रेजों ने हमारे स्वतंत्रता सेनानियों को यहाँ कैदी बना के रखा था. उन्हीं सेनानियों के सम्मान में यह कारागृह अब एक भव्य कलादालन में रूपांतरित है. मोदी सरकार के निर्देश से आपके सक्षम नेतृत्व में इस कलादालन का निर्माण हुआ. स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर की भारत माता के प्रति प्रेम, निष्ठा, त्याग, समर्पण, इन सब का हमारे नाशिक नगरवासियों के हृदय में एक विशिष्ट स्थान है. उनके प्रति हर नगरवासी की भावना और श्रद्धा पवित्र है. इसी श्रद्धा और भावना से परिपूर्ण विचार से हमने आपको इस पुरस्कार के लिए उचित पाया। जो मातृशक्ति और मातृनिष्ठा वीर सावरकर की पहचान है, उसका एक धागा आपकी मातृनिष्ठा और आपकी सफल उपलब्धि से जुड़ता है। उसी धागे से बांधने के लिए आपको ये पुरस्कार देते हुए हर सावरकर प्रेमी नगरवासी और आयाम नाशिक अत्यंत हर्षित और उत्साहित है। आपसे ये सविनय अनुरोध है कि आप ये पुरस्कार स्वीकार करें। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
खरंच आहे, विजय असो। सावरकर सावरकर, वा, नाही खरंच आहे, ही खरी देशभक्ती आहे। आणि सर, तुम्ही आमच्या पिढीसाठी खरंच खूप मोठा आदर्श आहात आणि तुमच्यातला 1% जरी आम्ही आत्मसात करू शकलो तरी आम्ही खूप काही मिळवलं असं म्हटलं तरी हरकत नाही आहे। थँक्यू, खूप खूप धन्यवाद। डॉक्टर विक्रम संपत यांना प्रदान करण्यात येणाऱ्या सन्मानपत्राचं वाचन करण्यासाठी मी मंचावर आमंत्रित करतो आयाम नाशिकचे सदस्य चिन्मय खेडेकर यांना।
स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर सम्मान सम्मान पत्र। सावरकर माने तथ्य, सावरकर माने तर्क, सावरकर माने तारुण्य। माननीय अटल जी ने यह पंक्तियां वीर सावरकर जी के सम्मान में कही थी। तथ्य, तर्क और तारुण्य, यह तीनों विशेषताएं आपके व्यक्तित्व में निहित है। सम्माननीय डॉक्टर विक्रम जी संपत, आपको सम्मान पत्र प्रदान करना यह हमारे लिए विशेष आनंद का अवसर है। कर्नाटक के बंगलुरु में माताजी नागमणि संपत और पिताजी श्री संपत श्रीनिवासन के संपन्न घर में आपका जन्म हुआ। शालेय शिक्षा के साथ साथ 5 वर्ष के आयु से ही आपने शास्त्रीय संगीत की शिक्षा भी प्राप्त की। मराठी संस्कार आपको आपकी माताजी से मिले हैं। संभवतः इन्हीं संस्कारों के तार वीर सावरकर जी से जुड़ते हैं और उसकी अगली कड़ी आपको आयाम नासिक से जोड़ती है। बिट्स पिलानी से इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग, गणित में दोहरी उपाधि, मुंबई से MBA फाइनेंस, ऑस्ट्रेलिया से संगीत और इतिहास में डॉक्टरेट आदि आपकी शैक्षणिक सफलताएं रही है। शिक्षा पश्चात आपने GE कैपिटल, सिटी बैंक इन जैसी सुप्रसिद्ध आस्थापनाओं में प्रदीर्घ समय तक कार्य किया। आपका वर्तमान समय आप इतिहास संबंधी अनुसंधान कार्य में व्यतीत कर रहे हैं। महान व्यक्तियों के जीवन चरित्रों को पुस्तकों के माध्यम से उजागर करना यह आपकी लेखन अभिव्यक्ति का विशेष महत्वपूर्ण अंग है। इंग्लिश लिटरेचर में साहित्य अकादमी पुरस्कार प्राप्त करने वाले आप पहले युवा साहित्यिक हो। स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर, शास्त्रीय गायिका गौहरजान, मैसूर के महाराजा वडियार और टीपू सुल्तान इन जैसे व्यक्तियों पर किया गया तथ्यपूर्ण लेखन इसके प्रमुख उदाहरण है। इसके अलावा आपकी ब्रेव हाइट्स ऑफ भारत और वेटिंग फॉर शिवा जैसी किताबें भी प्रसिद्ध है। रॉयल हिस्टोरिकल सोसाइटी की फेलोशिप, राष्ट्रपति भवन के निवासी लेखक, यह आपकी यशस्वी उपलब्धि है। महाराष्ट्र राज्य के राजभवन के तहखाने में स्थित कारागृह का रूपांतर भव्य कला कक्ष में हुआ है। मोदी सरकार के निर्देश से आपके सक्षम नेतृत्व में यह कार्य सफल हुआ है। विक्रम जी, आपका परिचय एवं कार्य इस मानपत्र में प्रस्तुत करना गागर में सागर समाने का प्रयास करने जैसा है। गणित से प्राप्त तर्क, अनुसंधान से प्राप्त तथ्य आपकी युवा चेतना सदैव जीवित रखे। साहित्य निर्माण आपकी शाश्वत पहचान बनी रहे। इसी सद्भावना के साथ आयाम नाशिक और हर नगरवासी आपको यह सम्मान पत्र प्रदान करते हुए गौरवान्वित अनुभव करते हैं। स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर सम्मान पुरस्कार आपको प्रदान करते हुए आयाम नाशिक कृतार्थ भाव से पूरित है। वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम।
खूप धन्यवाद चिन्मय. डॉक्टर विक्रम संपत यांना प्रदान केल्या जाणाऱ्या पुरस्काराचं स्वरूप आहे मानपत्र, सन्मानचिन्ह आणि रुपये 51,000. मी विनंती करतो माननीय जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलद शर्मा यांना आणि त्यासोबतच आयाम नाशिकचे अध्यक्ष डॉक्टर भरत केळकर यांना की त्यांनी स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर सन्मान पुरस्कार डॉक्टर विक्रम संपत यांना प्रदान करावा. खूप खूप धन्यवाद सर. आज मी सगळ्यांना न विचारता सगळ्यांच्या वतीने ही प्रॉमिस विक्रम सरांना नक्की करतो की आता स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर यांच्या आदर्शावर आपण चाललात तर आपल्या आदर्शावर आम्ही चालू हे नक्की 100%. आणि यातनं जितकं शक्य होईल तितकं परत समाजाला देत कोणत्या ना कोणत्या पद्धतीने समाजकार्य करत करत पुन्हा एखाद्या मंचावर आपण परत नक्कीच भेटू. आणि आता हा आपला आनंद द्विगुणित करण्यासाठी स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर यांनी भारत मातेला मानवंदना देण्यासाठी रचलेलं गीत जयोस्तुते सादर करण्यासाठी येते प्रख्यात गायिका रसिका नातू देसाई.
जयोस्तुते जयोस्तुते श्रीमहन्मङ्गले शिवास्पदे शुभदे स्वतन्त्रते भगवती त्वामहं यशोयुतां वन्दे यशोयुतां वन्दे. जयोस्तुते जयोस्तुते श्रीमहन्मङ्गले शिवास्पदे शुभदे स्वतन्त्रते भगवती त्वामहं यशोयुतां वन्दे यशोयुतां वन्दे. राष्ट्राचे चैतन्यमूर्त तू नीतिसंपदांची राष्ट्राचे चैतन्यमूर्त तू नीतिसंपदांची स्वतंत्रते भगवती श्रीमती राज्ञी तू त्यांची परवशतेच्या नभात तुझी आकाशी होशी स्वतंत्रते भगवती स्वतंत्रते भगवती चांदणी चमचम लखलखशी वन्दे त्वामहं यशोयुतां वन्दे. जयोस्तुते जयोस्तुते श्रीमहन्मङ्गले शिवास्पदे शुभदे स्वतन्त्रते भगवती त्वामहं यशोयुतां वन्दे यशोयुतां वन्दे. गालावरच्या कुसुमी किंवा कुसुमांच्या गाली गालावरच्या कुसुमी किंवा कुसुमांच्या गाली स्वतंत्रते भगवती तूच जी विलसतसे लाली तू सूर्याचे तेज उदधीचे गांभीर्य ही तुची स्वतंत्रते भगवती स्वतंत्रते भगवती अन्यथा ग्रहण नष्टतेची वन्दे त्वामहं यशोयुतां वन्दे जयोस्तु ते श्रीमहन्मङ्गले शिवास्पदे शुभदे स्वतन्त्रते भगवती त्वामहं यशोयुतां वन्दे मोक्षमुक्तिः तुझीच रूपे तुलाच वेदान्ती मोक्षमुक्तिः तुझीच रूपे तुलाच वेदान्ती स्वतन्त्रते भगवती योगी जन परब्रह्म वदती जे उत्तम उदात्त उन्नत महन्मधुरते ते स्वतन्त्रते भगवती सर्वतव सहचारी होते वन्दे त्वामहं यशोयुतां वन्दे हे अधम रक्तरञ्जिते सुजन पूजिते हे अधम रक्तरञ्जिते सुजन पूजिते श्री स्वतन्त्रते तुझसाठी मरण ते जनन तुझ वीण जनन ते मरण तुझ सकल चराचर शरण श्री स्वतन्त्रते जयोस्तु ते श्रीमहन्मङ्गले शिवास्पदे शुभदे स्वतन्त्रते भगवती त्वामहं यशोयुतां वन्दे वन्दे
जिचं गाणं कधीच संपू नये असं आपल्याला कायम वाटत असतं आणि जिचं गाणं ऐकण्यासाठी गेस्टसुद्धा कधीची वाट पाहत होते. करमरकर मॅम यांना तुला परत नंतर भेटायचं आहे. सो पुन्हा एकदा या गोड आवाजाचं खूप खूप कौतुक. आता मी विनंती करतो की या मंगल प्रसंगी माननीय जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलद शर्मा यांनी आपल्या भावना व्यक्त कराव्या.
सर्वांना नमस्कार. मंचावर उपस्थित आजचे सन्मानमूर्ती श्री संपतजी, शेफाली वैद्याजी, आयाम नाशिक यांचे मुख्य स्तंभ डॉक्टर केलकर, त्यांची पूर्ण टीम, समोर बसलेले नाशिक आणि पूर्ण महाराष्ट्र भारतातून आलेले सर्वजण, सर्व आजचे मुख्य अतिथी, आजचे चीफ कॉन्ट्रीब्युटर्स, जिल्हा प्रशासनाचे तर्फे मी सर्वांच्या नाशिक जिल्ह्यामध्ये स्वागत करतो आणि मी डॉक्टर केलकर आणि यांची टीमला खूप धन्यवाद देतो की त्यांनी आम्हाला इथे आमंत्रित केलं. माझा जन्म आणि माझी जन्मभूमी जरी हरियाणा आहे, तर मातृभूमी जर हरियाणा आहे तरी पण आता कर्मभूमी माझी महाराष्ट्र आहे. आणि आता मला मराठीमध्ये बोलताना जे कम्फर्ट आलेलं आहे त्याचं पण कारण मी असं समजतो की आम्ही जे आमच्याकडनं जे शासनाची अपेक्षा आहे की लोकल लँग्वेजला शिकून त्यामध्ये जर तुम्ही जनमानसाशी बोलले तरीच जे आपलं मूळ सिव्हिल सर्व्हिसेस आणि स्पेशली आमची सर्व्हिसचा जे सिद्धांत आहे ते आम्ही कुठेतरी हे करू शकतो. तर माझा प्रयत्न आपण ऐकता त्याबद्दल खूप खूप धन्यवाद. नाशिक स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर यांची धरती आहे. भारत स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर यांची धरती आहे आणि ह्याच्या नाशिक आणि भारताला अभिमान आहे. या अभिमानाला एक दिशा देण्यासाठी हा जे सन्मान मागच्या वर्षीपासून गोदावरी संवाद आणि आयाम यांनी जे सुरू केलेलं आहे हे दुसरा आज वर्ष आहे आणि जशा प्रकारे ह्याला प्रतिसाद भेटत आहे आणि जशा प्रकारचे पार्टिसिपेशन ह्यामध्ये होत आहे, डॉक्टर केलकर मला सांगायला खूप आनंद भेटतो की मला पूर्ण विश्वास आहे की हे खूप पुढे जाणार आहे आणि आमची शुभेच्छा, राज्याची, शासनाची, प्रशासनाची शुभेच्छा आपल्यासोबत आहे. स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकर यांच्या जीवनातून आम्ही जे काही शिकू शकतो त्याचे जे मुख्य बिंदू आहे, त्यांचे चारित्र्याच्या किंवा त्यांचे जे स्ट्रगल होता त्याच्यातून जे आलेले मुख्य बिंदू आहे त्याच्या काही ना काही एक भाग म्हणून एक थीम दरवर्षी या कार्यक्रमामध्ये घेतली जाते. जसा डॉक्टर केलकर यांनी सांगितलं की ह्या वर्षी नरेटिव्स जे आहे ते पण सावरकरजी यांचे जीवनाचा एक महत्त्वाचा भाग होता. आज रोजी आता कुठे ना कुठे प्रशासनाचा पण जिक्र येणार, तर आज रोजी पण सर्वांना माहीत असेल की नुकतेच विधानसभाचे इलेक्शन झालेले आहे आणि एक प्रकारच्या परत प्रशासन आणि शासन, चीफ इलेक्टोरल ऑफिस ECI एक नरेटिव्हला बीट करण्याचा प्रयत्न करतोय की EVM हे हॅक होऊ शकतात किंवा ह्यामध्ये काही गडबड होऊ शकतात. दिस इज अ मॉडर्न नरेटिव्ह आणि आम्ही पण दिवस रात्री वेगळे वेगळे समाज माध्यमातून, कधी कधी कोर्टच्या माध्यमातून हे नरेटिव्सला कुठे ना कुठे काउंटर करण्याचा, टॅकल करण्याचा प्रयत्न करत आहोत. मी ह्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त बोलणार नाही. मला माहीत आहे की आता आम्ही सर्वजण ज्याची वाट बघतोय, श्री संपत यांचा इंटरव्ह्यू पण सुरू होणार आहे. मी परत सर्व ऑर्गनायझरला धन्यवाद देतो. मिस्टर आनंद, so you won't know this, but when I was a 17-year-old or 16-year-old child, and Sports Center used to be my favorite program those days. I was very fond of quizzing, and Sports Center was a, I don't know how many of you, किती लोकांना माहीत आहे, तो एक प्रोग्राम होता, रात्री 10 वाजता येत होता, 10 to 10:30, and Mr. Sohail Qureshi used to be the presenter, and one fine day I saw Mr. Anand Narasimhan starting there. But Mr. Anand, let me tell you ki you look even better in real, and I think 20 years have passed, but you still look the same. So kudos to your regime. That was just a fan moment, but so सर्वांना परत मी धन्यवाद देतो आणि सर्वांना खूप खूप शुभेच्छा. आणि लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, विक्रम संपतजी, आपल्याला खूप खूप शुभेच्छा आणि खूप खूप अभिनंदन. धन्यवाद. जय हिंद, जय महाराष्ट्र.
खूप खूप धन्यवाद सर. आता माझ्यासकट आपण सगळेच उत्सुक आहोत आजचे पुरस्कारार्थी डॉक्टर विक्रम संपत यांचे विचार, यांचा प्रवास ऐकण्यासाठी. मी विनंती करतो रायटर, ब्लॉगर शेफाली वैद्य यांना की त्यांनी मुलाखतीला सुरुवात करावी. त्यासोबतच मी इतर मान्यवरांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी कृपया ऑडियन्समध्ये आसनस्थ व्हावं.
Hello. First of all, Vikram, many congratulations. I know you're no stranger to awards. You have many to your credit, but I am sure this one is very special. So, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Shefali. स्वातंत्र्यवीर विनायक दामोदर सावरकरांच्या जन्मस्थानी हा पुरस्कार मला मिळावा हे मी माझे परम सौभाग्य समजतो. मला ह्या पुरस्काराने सन्मानित केल्याबद्दल मी सर्व आयोजकांना ऋणी आहे. इससे ज़्यादा मैं अपनी माँ मैटरनल साइड को और इंसल्ट नहीं करवाना चाहता हूँ. मैं सम्मानीय कलेक्टर जी की तरह I can't speak such prolific Marathi, but I must tell you from the bottom of my heart, it was an extremely, extremely special and very memorable moment for me a few minutes ago. This city is something that I have been visiting so many times as part of my research. To Bhagur, to people here, to the Abhinav Bharat, center where Savarkar ji used to meet as a young boy. And Collector Saab, उसके सामने जो नेहरू सर्कल है, उसका नाम थोड़ा बदल दीजिए. We would, I don't know under whose कार्य क्षेत्र. जिस देश में हर कोई एयरपोर्ट स्टेडियम हैज़ बीन नेम्ड ओनली आफ्टर सर्टन पीपल, एटलीस्ट जहाँ वीर सावरकर जी की क्रांति का उदय हुआ, एटलीस्ट वहाँ पे तो उनका नाम बनता है, एंड ऑल दी अदर ग्रेट रेवोल्यूशनरीज. सो it almost felt with your wondrous applause that all those revolutionaries who came from this Pavan Bhumi of Nashik, including Anand Lakshman Kanhere, all of them were blessing this gathering from somewhere, and I'm deeply, from the bottom of my heart, extremely grateful to all of you, to Dr. Kelkar, Milinji, the entire Aayam team, for considering me, worthy enough of such an important and eminent award. Thank you so much.
That was really wonderful. I have interacted with Vikram many times on many of his books, but nothing gives me greater pleasure than to host this interaction, because this city is very special. This award is very special, and this moment is very special. So before I start talking about your books, I was just watching that little AV that they did about you, and it's exhausting. I don't know. I mean, you are a mathematician, you are a musician, you are a historian, you are a best-selling author, you have been a banker. So what's a nice mathematician stroke banker stroke musician like you doing in a field like history writing, which is so full of controversies, created or otherwise?
I think that's a sign of a very confused CV. So, or probably, I used to get bored very often. Honestly, the engineering, like any good middle-class family, if your child is good in studies, which I was, the invariable route is to go to science. And the sad part is you do well there also. And then, so the engineering followed. And then to run away from the engineering, I did a master's in mathematics. Then to run away from all of that, I tried, the MBA in finance, working in those companies. Honestly, Shefali, every day would be a torture to go to office. I was always wondering, am I going to die one day, calculating profit and loss of some American company, and not even gali ke kutte ko bhi pata nahi chalega ki someone like this passed away. I'm so glad, that destiny sometimes has plans for you which you just don't plan that yourself. Something takes you. I think the power of surrender. Sharanagati, I think I've understood that whatever you plan never happens. Serendipity has been the constant fabric. And like I was mentioning in the previous session, it was very, very serendipitous. और एक यहाँ पे confession मुझे कर लेना है कि जब मैं स्कूल में पढ़ रहा था तो the subject I hated the most was history. और जो सबसे ज़्यादा अगर punishment किसी भी subject में मुझे मिला है तो इतिहास है, क्योंकि कौन किसके बाद आया, कौन से ईस्वी में कौन सा युद्ध हुआ, ये सब रट्टा मुझसे मारा ही नहीं जा सकता था. And in fact, I remember there was a teacher, पता नहीं उस दिन क्या हुआ उनको, बहुत frustrated थी बेचारी. She took something I had done, अकबर का कुछ map of the reign of अकबर या ऐसा कुछ गलत मैंने कर दिया था, तो 2 rulers उन्होंने लेके मेरे हथेली पे मारा इतने ज़ोर से कि वो स्केल टूट गया और उसका एक स्प्लिंटर चला गया. उसका मार्क आज भी है, हिस्ट्री टीचर का मार्क. तो आजकल वो बेचारी हिस्ट्री टीचर मेरे बुक लॉन्चेस पे भी आती है, बहुत शी इज़ वेरी शीपिश, आई एम सो सॉरी. तो मैं दिखाता रहता हूँ कि देखो दिस इज़ योर देन. तो अगले दिन in fact my mother went to the school and made such a ruckus saying, how does it matter if my son doesn't know the extent of Akbar's reign, उसका जीवन थोड़ा ही बदल जाएगा and all of that. But for a child of 12 or 13 who hated the subject, the manner in which it is taught, again serendipity ruled. I should thank Sanjay Khan for changing the course of my life. अगर वो नहीं होते तो मैं आज वही बैंक में कहीं प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस करते बैठा हुआ होता. by chance that serial came, and as I mentioned in the earlier session, उसमें जो टीपू सुल्तान और उसके पिता हैदर अली को बढ़ा चढ़ा के दिखाना था, तो इसलिए मैसूर के राजवंश को they showed it in a very very poor light, और उस पर बहुत सारे प्रोटेस्ट वगैरह हुए कर्नाटक में. तो एज अ यंग बॉय आई डोंट नो व्हाट बिट मी, वही है नियति. माई फैमिली हैड नो कनेक्शन टू मैसूर, हाफ तमिलियन हाफ महाराष्ट्रियन, बट आई सेड ऑन अ विफ आई डिसाइडेड कि इसके बारे में जानना है, सत्यान्वेषण पे निकलना है. नेवर विद द आइडिया कि यू नो आई पुट इट इन अ बुक. दोज डेज आई वाज इवन ओके विद स्केचिंग एंड पेंटिंग. तो पैलेस में बैठ के मैं आई यूज्ड टू मेक पोर्ट्रेट्स ऑफ ऑल दीज राजाज एंड रानीज, और एक पर्सनल लॉग बुक सा बना था वो. एंड माई पुअर पेरेंट्स, इट बिकेम अ फैमिली प्रोजेक्ट फॉर ऑल ऑफ देम. हर वेकेशन में मैसूर जाओ. माई फादर यूज्ड टू गेट सो अनॉयड, ही सेड आई हैव सीन, चप्पा चप्पा देख लिया ये पैलेस का, मैं अंदर नहीं आ रहा हूँ, आई विल बी वेटिंग आउटसाइड, यू फिनिश योर thing and come back. So self-initiated, self-motivated, self-funded also for a middle-class family, lower middle-class family to actually afford to do this. तो ये जो पागलपन था ये 10 साल तक चला. I don't know why. कुछ वाडियार राजाओं का I think spirits came in and took over. 10 years and the entire, from that one king and queen, my interest expanded to the entire dynasty. And they ruled for 600 years, 1399 से लेके till independence 1947. और उसके बाद मैंने देखा कि एक भी किताब नहीं लिखी गई है in a modern perspective आज to cover this entire 600 साल का इतिहास. अंग्रेजी नॉवेलिस्ट टोनी मॉरिसन का एक कोट है कि if there is a book that you want to read and it hasn't been written yet, then you must be the first one to write it. तो इसीलिए मैंने सोचा कि you know if the book is not there, let us not complain, keep complaining. Complain के लिए बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं. We can keep doing this till the cows come home. And you know our history in our country is so, one of the biggest flaws along with the other flaws we discussed is it is extremely Delhi centric. दिल्ली में हर कोई छोटा मोटा राज परिवार, लोधी, खिलजी, तुगलक, इनका पूरा वंशावली हमको याद है, कंठस्थ है. पर लार्ज पार्ट्स ऑफ द कंट्री, स्पेशली दक्षिण भारत जहाँ से मैं आता हूँ, या पूर्वोत्तर के बारे में अगर आपसे यहाँ पूछें कि अहोम राजवंश जो वाडियार्स की तरह 600 साल तक राज किए, क्या 2 अहोम राजाओं का नाम आप गिना पाएंगे यहाँ पे कोई? So that is the sad part. But अकबर के बाद कौन आया, उसके बाद कौन आया, उसके कितनी बीवियाँ थी, उसने ताजमहल क्यों बनाया, ये सब हमें रट्टा मालूम है. क्या असम और कामरूप हमारे देश का हिस्सा नहीं है? और भारतीय इतिहास अगर हम बोलेंगे तो उसमें पूरे भारत का मिश्रण होना चाहिए, सम्मिश्रण होना चाहिए. द पर्सन कमिंग फ्रॉम द नॉर्थ ईस्ट स्टडीइंग हिस्ट्री इन दिल्ली will feel there is no cultural icon or identification at all for him or her. So that is how this first book, Splendors of Royal Mysore, came about in 2008, 17 साल पहले. And I thought I'll go back to the day job and get to working. But again, destiny had many other plans, thankfully. And वहाँ पे my eyes fell on a Tawayef, thankfully a dead one.
I'll just intervene here before we move to your other books. I want to know, when you wrote The Splendors of the Mysore Kingdom, this kingdom was different from other royals. It was not just the opulent display of wealth, or it was not just, collecting of many artifacts, or just opulent living that they were famous for. This dynasty has been at the forefront of so many reforms, so many good things done for the citizens. So tell us a little bit about the Wadiyars.
I mean, today in Karnataka, if one is proud of the industrial climate there, the cosmopolitan culture, especially in southern Karnataka, which was part of the Mysore state, the biggest contribution of that is to the later Wadiyars, who came after the death of Tipu Sultan. Now, a lot of people would say, "Arey, ye to Angrezon ke pittu the, they were under the thumb of the British and so on." But one is, of course, you have limited powers. Almost all royalties of that time had limited powers. But despite those limitations, this dynasty, they had numerous firsts to its credit. I'll just give 2 examples here. Today, between Karnataka and our neighboring state, Tamil Nadu, there is always fight over the Kaveri water and the Krishnaraja Sagar Dam. Now, the KRS dam, which was built in 1931 by Krishnaraja Vadiyar IV, Nalvadi Krishnaraja Vadiyar, whom Gandhi himself had called as Raja Rishi. And he said a province like Mysore doesn't even need freedom because it is ruled by a god. That was Gandhi's words for the kingdom. Now, when this dam was built in 1931, there was some deficit in the budget, the seed capital needed for building this dam. Now, can you imagine that the royal family and all the women in the family, they collect all their jewelry, golden, plates, ornaments, everything, and send it off to Bombay, where it is pawned at competitive rates, and the money that comes from that is the one that is invested as seed capital for the dam. And the people of Bangalore, Mysore, Mandya, that region are still beneficiaries of this water, for which we also have fights. That's another issue. But selflessly working for the cause of the people. The other thing is, this same Krishnaraja Vadiyar, when he was a young boy, his mother was a regent queen, not necessarily very well educated. So during her tenure as the regent, there was a Royal Society of Science which came looking for a place in India to establish an institute of excellence in science. Now, today it is politically incorrect to say Bangalore has the best infrastructure because we know how the condition there is. But those days, apparently, it had one of the best town planning, wide roads, good climate, nice people, all of that. And so they chose Bangalore as one option. At the same time, there was another college in Roorkee, which was trying to make a competitive bid for this institute. Now, without waiting for the, Roorkee College to go ahead with this queen who has a very long name, Kempa Nanjam Manni Vani Vilasa Sannidhana. So she immediately gave about 50,000 rupees for the society and about 300 acres of land in the heart of Bangalore to establish this institute, which later became the Indian Institute of Science, IISc, 120 years ago. And the spiraling effects of that, Bangalore becoming a knowledge center, later you had HAL, you had ISRO, and much, much later you had the IT, BT revolution coming there. So the later Vadiyars and some of their very illustrious Diwans, Diwan Mirza Ismail, and of course the other man whose name some people, struggle to pronounce, Sir M. Vishweshwaraya, Bharat Ratna Sir M. Vishweshwaraya. These people were the ones who heralded that, progress in Mysore. The first province in India to have a representative system of government through the Praja Pratinidhi Sabhe in 1881. The first to implement animal husbandry, family planning, numerous, industries that came up. Cultural osmosis where not only Carnatic musicians, but Hindustani musicians and also Western musicians. In the 1920s, you had a, kind of a fusion concert of a Western pianist with a Carnatic veena player and someone like an Abdul Karim Khan or Gauhar Jan and others who came to the court. Its own unique style of the Bharatnatyam, a Bharatnatyam Shaili of Mysore, Mysore style of painting, which is very different from Tanjavur. So many such, progressive steps. And one more thing I would like to tell you that, especially after partition, around that time, in those very troubled 1940s, both my paternal and maternal side faced a lot of persecution in their respective states. In 1948, after the assassination of Gandhi, the kind of genocide that happened of the Maharashtrian Brahmins. Only because Godse and Apte were Maharashtrian Brahmins. Initially Chitpavan, then even the Deshasthas. My maternal side were the Deshasthas. A lot of them they also faced a lot of persecution that time. Some were killed and they then made their way to Mysore and settled down there. On the other side, in Tamil Nadu, you had the rise of the Dravidian movement and, there again, anti-Brahmin movement that was there. A lot of people from Tamil Nadu came to Mysore. So this Hindu kingdom in the midst of this was like an oasis which was welcoming all persecuted people in the vicinity with open arms. And I think that cosmopolitanism that it brought in its wake, for which, so imagine a kingdom like this to show the Maharaja of that, dynasty as a, buffoon who's dancing with the court dancer, somewhere spontaneously people reacted. There were politics in it too, but I think spontaneous people's revolt. And you have the scion of the family, Yaduvir Vadiyar, who's now a member of parliament too from the BJP, from Mysore and Kodagu. So even now that unbroken link, the Dasara that is celebrated from 1610 as an inheritor of the Vijayanagar traditions. You have the Mahanavami Dibba and all that in Hampi. The same Hindu traditions which were uplifted. And Hindus given that, sense of protection and safety. I think one can go on and to to think that a dynasty like this did not even have a book in India, whereas we have every year a biography of Babur and Akbar. Nothing wrong. I mean, let that also be. But let the history of India be an inclusive, collection of all parts of India. I think Bharat needs to snatch back its history from the clutches of Delhi.
Very, very true. One more thing I'd like to add to it, the Mysore Wadiyar family also were the first ones actually to start the Mysore sari udyog, the Mysore silk saris. So the king actually got the power looms from UK at that point of time. Those looms are still working actually if you go to see the Mysore sari factory. And this whole culture, the Mysore sari is that way not a traditional sari. It's a power loom sari, but it's become iconic in the Indian fashion scene today. So now moving on to your two other books before, this gentleman just exploded on the scene. Your book about Gohar Jan and your book about the Veena Maestro S. Balachandar. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Why did you think about writing this? And what was the purpose?
Yeah. From childhood, I'm a single child, very shy, very introverted. Sitting under the glare of lights is not something that I enjoy doing. To be honest, again, today is a day of confessions. I told you my one limitation of hating history. I have immense stage fear is also another confession I'm making here. So it's another thing that occupational hazard is, it puts you in this spotlight. So the two things that I owe to my parents is from a very, very young age, they gave me the love for books, reading, and also classical music. In a South Indian house, you wake up to MS Subbulakshmi, Suprabhatam almost by osmosis. And the Maharashtrian side, a lot of Hindustani influence also. And so from the age of 5 or 6 is when I started learning, classical music. And that grew on me, vocal and violin and all of that I learned. Now this, while doing this Mysore book research, by chance, again serendipity, nothing planned, everything happens by itself. While doing the research in the archives, there was a small little box file full of letters of visiting musicians who came to the Mysore Darbar. As I said, Abdul Karim Khan Saab came there, several, Barkatullah Khan, Veena Dhanammal, so many people of the time, they came to Mysore. In that, there were a couple of pages of this lady called Gohar Jan of Calcutta. And it said she was India's first gramophone celebrity, the first woman and musician of the entire subcontinent to commercially record her voice on a gramophone when recording technology came from London in 1902. There were a few pages there. She died in Mysore. She spent the last 2 years in Mysore as a state musician, and very pitiable letters, please increase my salary, don't cut income tax, almost, a diva who was in the sunset of her life. I don't know what happened. There was that ring to her name, I think, growing up to Umrao Jan and Rekha and all that fascination. On a whim, I said, I have to find out more about this lady. Had no clue how to do that because here was, as I said, a tawayaf, a courtesan who had no, known legal heirs, no student line, nothing. So literally, looking for her, a needle in a haystack. Over the next 4 years, I think I chased my love interest all over India from Azamgarh, where she was born actually to a Hindu grandmother, a British grandfather, so an Anglo-Indian mother and an Armenian father. And she was actually baptized initially as Eileen Angelina Yoward in Allahabad. And later, the mother and daughter convert to Islam. The mother becomes a great poetess of her times called Badi Malka Jan, and she becomes Gohar. And both of them go to the Darbar of Wajid Ali Shah in Calcutta, which is where they become, the court musicians there. Now, I chased her through Darbhanga, Rampur, Banaras, Calcutta, Mysore, Madras, Mumbai, even outside India to Berlin and, London to get, literally bring her out of the tomb. And after 4 long years of, struggling on this, that my second book, My Name is Gohar Jan, the life and times of a musician came out. At that time, there was also this Karan Johar's film called My Name is Khan. So a lot of people thought, is it a marketing gimmick? But there was a reason for that. All these musicians, and I think this is so important here. Gohar's life is, of course, very fascinating, ups and downs that she faced. But when recording technology came to India, all over India, it was actually women who first recorded. We men who are associated with all kinds of tech and gizmos, none of them, went for this recording. north, south, east, west, women were the ones. Gohar set the template. Now there were so many limitations of that early technology. There were no microphones like this to amplify your voice. It was a time of acoustic recording where, you know, there used to be a horn that is fitted on the wall, and this poor singer had to crane her head inside that horn and sing as loudly as you could. And depending on how loudly you screamed, there was a stylus at the other end which would vibrate and cut etches on a shellac disc, the 78 RPM shellac discs. Now, Indian musicians, while singing, you know, they tend to move their hands and as the raga takes over. So that would spoil the acoustic energy going into the horn. So there would be two agents who would hold their hand. One would hold their head and push them into that, you know, horn and say, bellow hard. So, and, you know, they could only sing 3 minutes. This was only 3 minutes recording. So almost like Presi writing in literature, where, you know, in Shastriya Sangeet, one rag, you can go on for hours together. So in clockwork precision, thoda, you know, mukhda, antara, then some sargams, taan, vagera karke, end mein you have to announce your name. So she very flamboyantly, my name is Gohar Jan, you have liked my song. Aapko koi option hi nahi diya, you have already liked my song. And because these recordings would be made in Indian studios, but the master shellac would be shipped all the way to Germany, Hanover in Germany to manufacture. And for the technician there, this was an anonymous voice, so they would listen to the entire recording, identify the artist by this name, and then the records would come back to India for sale. So Gohar Jan, Janki Bai of Allahabad, Zohra Bai Agrewali, Malka Jan Agrewali, Bai Sundra Bai of Pune, Achan Bai of Bombay, Dhanakoti Ammal of Kanchipuram, Coimbatore Tai, Salem Godavari. These names, if you ask Hindustani and Carnatic musicians, to bagle jhankne lagenge, kisi ko malum nahi honge, but for these women, if they hadn't gone into that makeshift studio, I think Indian music industry itself would not have taken this, you know, large leap today. So I think this book was also a tribute, and also a very, very feisty lady. Just two incidents about her that, you know, and this recording technology made all these women superstars of her time, their times. Gohar Jan's photographs used to appear on matchboxes made in Austria. Aap sochiye, ek Tawaif of Calcutta being actually recognized in Austria. That was the power of technology, the power of money. She used to charge 3,000 rupees for one recording session. So you can imagine those days it was quite a lot of money. So she was flamboyant. She would go around the Calcutta, you know, driving on her buggy, white horses, wearing all her finery. And she was so fair, Anglo-Indian. So once the Viceroy's cavalcade crosses her, he thinks she's the queen of some riyasat and he doffs his hat or something. She also acknowledges him and drives away. Later, when he realizes that she's a common Tawaif and it is a crime for common Indians to go on a buggy, it's only royalty and the British who could do it. So this, he puts a fine. So this lady actually pays a fine of some 1,000 rupees every day, but continues to go on her joy rides. Once when Gandhiji actually asks her to raise money for the Congress party. Now, she says, okay, but I will do it on a condition that Gandhi should be personally present in the audience. Only then I'll give you the money. So he was also amused, but he said yes. Now, on the day, it was a runaway success. They collected some 50,000 through sales of tickets. Now, she scanned the audience and saw Gandhi had not come. I think he had sent Maulana Shaukat Ali as his representative. Now, after the concert, when he goes to collect the money, she gives 25,000. So he says, Arey, 50,000 was the thing. He said, Dekhiye, your Mahatma, he talks about honesty and integrity. He hasn't kept his word to a common Tawaif. So he's kept only 50% of his word. So I will also give only 50% of the money you need. So the chutzpah, that bindas attitude, and also the usual, you know, narrative of a Tawaif, like we saw in Umrao Jan, falling in love with all the wrong men who cheated her, literally reduced her to the state of beggary. And that is how she comes very pitiably to Mysore and died there. And I don't know uska bhoot kahan se sawar ho gaya, that she also found me in that Mysore Palace archive and said, isko pakadna hai ki he will write my story. And you know, literally it was madness. I even went to the KR hospital where she died in Mysore, masquerading as her grandson, saying I'm her grandson, I'm looking for her death certificate. I actually got the death certificate, which is put in the appendix to the book. I even went to the Kabristan committee in Mysore looking for her tomb, and unfortunately all pre-independence era tombs were there, but it was not to be found. Now this book, I think, changed my life totally and completely. I think she had a design that mere liye itna kiya hai, to let me do something in return and rid him of that corporate job. So it did multiple things to me. One is, this, as a student of music myself, I wanted to hear her voice. How did she sound? But you don't even get those machines anymore, the 78 RPMs, that pin which goes around, that also is not available. All the cultural inheritance of our country, unfortunately, lies to this day in chor bazaars and raddi shops across various cities. And during this time, I had a fellowship in Berlin, and using Berlin as a base, I went to all the archives, sound archives, and all European cities have a national sound archive, where not only, their recordings, but valuable Indian recordings are sitting there. Not just of music, but also of common Indians and leaders. Lala Hardayal of the Gadar Party, when Tagore went to the Berlin University, his speech, Gandhi's speech, Subhash Chandra Bose's speech. And in one archive in Berlin called the Laut Archive, you have about 500 voices of Indian prisoners of war of the First World War, talking in their language, kuch chutkula sunao, kuch ye sunao, and they have documented 40 pages, ye kaun hai, kaun se gaon se aaya hai, what is his father's name, whatever he narrated, usko German mein likho, apni lipi mein likho, usko translate, all of this document. And they used to ask me, doesn't India have a national sound archive? And as a student of music, history, and more as an Indian, it was very shameful for me to say, no, hamara sab kuch kabadi wale ke paas hai. So after coming back in 2011 or 12, I established this archive of Indian music, AIM. Thank you. With private enterprise, Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, who was then with Infosys, he made a very generous grant. We imported all the machines to digitize these records. And I'm happy to announce that we have rescued about 15,000 records, from these chor bazaars across India. And these include Carnatic music, Hindustani music, folk music, theatre recordings, the Marathi Natya Sangeet, Master Krishna Rao, Bal Gandharva, all these, Bai Sundara Bai, their recordings, all those also you'll find in some chor bazaar in Mumbai. And also speeches of leaders. The only gramophone record of Gandhi's voice, where he talks about my conception of God or something like that, that was in Chandni Chowk in Delhi, where among a heap of gramophone records, one fellow was putting his leg on that and sitting. So all those records digitized, and if all of you actually go to this soundcloud.com and search for Archive of Indian Music, free of cost, about 2,000, 3,000 tracks are there. Sitting in the comfort of your home, you can listen to tracks ranging back to 1902. Because this is not my personal property, I think it belongs to each and every Indian man, woman, child to listen to these voices. So in a country like this, which talks so much about history, but our sense of preservation, documentation, digitization, it is woefully short. So this was one offshoot that Gauhar Jan brought. And the other thing, by chance, I was giving talks everywhere. I went to this University of Queensland to talk about this Gauhar and this whole era. By my luck, I had the heads of school of history and music sitting right in the first row. And after the talk, they said, you've done so much of research, why don't you put this all together in the form of a PhD, which we will help you get. And the other sense of luck was there was a Indian scholar there, Professor B.P. Singhal, who had died with a bequest that any Indian scholar who will come here for studies in PhD, he was a historian, and we'll give that Rashi, Dhan Rashi, to that person. And that was expiring in 6 months. So, lo and behold, the Indian scholar was there, the Dhan Rashi was there. So immediately, all the grahas matched. And so they said, you take this, and 4 years of research, and the amount of stipend that came as part of that bequest was, I think, more than my salary in that Citibank and Hewlett Packard, given the conversion rate. So it gave me the confidence to give up that, job and plunge into writing and history research full time. So that's what, when someone asks, how did this happen? What did you plan? I just don't know. Just surrender and let the magic happen through you. Be a very, I think, accepting kind of instrument, receptive instrument, saying, I will be available when grace comes down from some place above.
This is really fascinating. So now my next question is, most naturally, how did he haunt you?
Doesn't he haunt everyone?
He does,
his lovers and haters. So yeah, I think constantly in my maternal home, especially as I said, the Gandhi Vad and the kind of things that they were talking about. Savarkar did make an appearance in and out in hushed tones, but in my growing up years, there was no reference to him in my CBSE textbooks. I don't know if now anything has changed. As Anand said, we have ministers who say we have not changed one single word very proudly in our history books. So Port Blair, Kalapani, all those other prisoners, forget him. The other prisoners who were there, nothing was known of that. I think there again, like I thank Sanjay Khan, I need to thank Manishankar Iyer yet again for my, for my fascination for him. Because especially, I think at some point the Congress government, we know when Savarkarji died, someone as a strategic stateswoman like Indira Gandhi had such effusive praise. She gives money for his smarak on his centenary and also has a movie in his honor, stamp, all of that. So Congress of those days, I think they were okay being generous to the alternative because the Jansangh or the BJP was not seen as a threat as yet. I think the real threat came when Vajpayee ji's Sarkar put his portrait in the Central Hall of Parliament and Mr. Ram Naik putting the plaque in the honor of Veer Savarkar at Kalapani. And when the UPA came to power, you had Manishankar Iyer, his successor, removing that plaque and saying all kinds of things against him. I don't know what did to me there. Again, something, there is a trigger and I get triggered. And that leads to a new journey which I have not thought of. So unwanted thanks have to be given to all kinds of people, in this case, Mr. Iyer. So I started doing more study of Savarkar, again, just out of interest. And the actual interest became more when you had the current leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, the kind of invectives he hurls at him, and the manner in which this man intrudes contemporary political space. You have the Prime Minister going to Kalapani, that very catching visual of him in reverence and meditation in front of his photograph. Those days, state governments were spending so much of valuable public time, money on, should we call him Veer, Maafi Veer, all these kind of epithets. In all this surround sound and noise, in Maharashtra there is no need, but outside Maharashtra, if a young man or woman wants to know what the hell is all this noise about, what is this man's legacy, why is it so contested and controversial even now, again, I don't know how many books were there on a national level. In Marathi, it's, talking about Savarkar here is like Suraj ko Deepak dikhana. There is no point doing that. But outside the borders of Maharashtra, nothing really written. And so that's when I got into a deep, study of him for 5-6 years, I guess. And it meant also, as was mentioned by Dr. Kelkar, he was such a Bahu-Ayami Vyaktitva. His poetry, his writings, Savarkar Samagra Vangmay running to 10 volumes. And since Marathi was not an impediment, it was easy to access those. I was a fellow at this NMML, which is now Pradhan Mantri Museum and Library. There you had the Savarkar private papers. As a fellow there, I could go and access those. When I see the accession register, the last time it has been seen by any human being in this whole universe is 1964, 65, certainly not after his death. So it was sitting right in the heart of Delhi. All these historians who throw invectives on him didn't even go and check those private papers which were sitting right in the middle of Delhi in Teen Murti Bhavan. And these had every letter transaction that went in and out of his house. He was probably the only person who was kept under surveillance both before independence and after independence. So, all the letter records were there, his own words, the Hindu Mahasabha papers, Shama Prasad Mukherjee, papers. So it was a kaleidoscope to choose from, the Marathi records. And outside India, about a month that I spent in London, the entire Nashik conspiracy case where Kanhere was killed for, executed for killing the then collector, sir, not the AMT Jackson, right here at, I think, the Vijayanand Theatre. So all those entire trial papers were there in complete toto in the British Library, almost running to 20,000 pages that I managed to take copies of. And 11,000 pages of the Gandhi murder trial in the National Archives of India. Again, seldom seen. Thankfully, some people helped me procure that. So it was literally trying to resurrect and understand first for myself and then for the readers as to what the enigma of this man is. There must be something in the person that after 60 years, 70 years of his passing away, still he raises heckles of so many people, and he polarizes Indian society, Indian politics. Like few others, election rallies, manifesto mein kaha jata hai ki we'll give Bharat Ratna, which they never give after coming to power. So all these different things, I think it needed a modern perspective. And someone very famous, a famous American historian had said, every work of history is an interim report. You know, there's nothing final about history. Every time, every generation looks back and drawing from their own conclusions, their own perspectives, their biases, everything, you reinterpret, revisit history. Because if everything about the past is already known and carved in stone, then we historians would go out of job. So that is why I think it was necessary to put him back in a kind of perspective. And I'm very glad that now every second person is writing books on him. After that, there were several books that came. I just heard there is a book by Mr. Arun Shourie on Savarkar, which is hitting the stands. And the blurb looks very hideous. I want to see how the book actually turns out. But fair enough, whatever it is, let there be discussion, debate. We all know how he had become a persona non grata during those times, just for singing some of those songs, tuning Jayostute or Ne Majasi Ne Paratamatra Bhumila, Sagara Pran Tadmalala. You had people like Pandit Hridainath Mangeshkar being asked to, leave the All India radio. And we are talking of intolerance in India after 2014. What was that? Just for, he and his sisters, Asha ji, Lata ji, singing those songs, he lost his job. So this cancel culture and this banning of idea, I think at least that is broken. Let there be 100 books which are written against him, for him. Let there be public debate, and the media is always happy to bring all our voices onto the table. But censoring somebody's thoughts, I think that is extremely bad. And I'm at least glad now the battle lines are drawn and the floodgates are open.
You know, in your book, you have given an actual interview of his, as is, basically. And if you read that interview, you would understand that, forget all your lectures about secularism and whatever. This was a man who had a scientific temper, who knew exactly which direction he wanted the country to go into. He was talking about assertiveness, he was talking about self-reliance in production, he was talking about all castes, creeds, religion being given equal rights and equal responsibilities in India. I mean, there's nothing in that interview which would even remotely justify Savarkar being called communal or any of those other names. So, what is the essential difference you think would have happened if in 1947 India had chosen the Savarkar way versus any other? Wow,
is that even it's a no-brainer. I think we would have charted a completely different path for the country. First of all, his foreign policy, too much before the rest of the country woke up to that, he constantly cautioned Prime Minister Nehru against China. And when the Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai thing was going on with Chow Enlai, he was saying that don't trust them, be cautious and so on. And he was proved right in 1962. He spoke about internal security, what was happening in the Northeast due to a demographic change, how that can lead to an insurrection. I think if there's a father of national security in India, it definitely goes to, the title should go to Swatantra Veer Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. The father of the nation is taken. So at least this, who understood. And this was not only then, Shefali, that even to almost 10 years before the Second World War, he had already written in the Shraddhanand, in the Kesari and other papers that, there is going to be another conflagration globally, like the First World War. That time we did not take advantage. Now we should not miss the bus. And so even from then, when he was in the Hindu Mahasabha, the Sainikikaran, the militarization that he started doing, all of that to ensure that, you see, I mean, 1857 to 1946, as I mentioned earlier, the Sashastra Kranti, ki jo aviral dhara behti rahi, what was the main principle of that? That, in the 1857, Bharatiya Sena mein bagavat hui. So the revolutionaries always thought that even if 1%, 10% of the soldiers, who, as Anand rightly said, were Indians. General Dyer gave the order to fire. The people who fired were Indians on fellow Indians. Now, 10% of these are seduced to patriotism. then the edifice of the British Empire can collapse. And that is what the revolutionaries constantly did. You saw the Gadar movement, which was transcontinental at that time. And finally, it found its culmination in what Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and Rash Bihari Bose with the Indian National Army did. And so the British did not want a repeat of 1857. And so the Congress also, when it was formed, it was called a safety valve. That, you know, give them some concessions. You can just placate them with some little perks here and there, freebies, and they will be happy. We don't want the Bagawat to come to the army. So by 1946, when you had the Bagawat coming to the navy and then various army units in Jabalpur, in Karachi, in Madras and other places, that is when Mountbatten was given this order that pack up, and from that wreckage before another 1857 repeats, come back. So quite in haste, they actually leave and go. But Savarkar understood that. He gave a caution of that long back. And as you rightly said, Hindutva being equated to Manuvadi, upper caste, I mean, it beats all logic, because Hindutva, which looks at unifying the Hindu society as one unit, if the society is broken into many segments, castes and subcastes, it is, counterproductive for their own organization. Hindu Sangathan, the movement that was there, that is why at that era, 1920s, we are talking of in Ratnagiri, to have Sahabhojan, where at a time when the Deshasthas and Konkanasthas would not sit together and eat, to have people of all communities in that cafe in Ratnagiri, the Patit Pavan Mandir, where all people could go and pray of all castes, the Asprishya Ganpati that he had, eradication of untouchability in schools, where children of all castes could sit together and study. Intercaste marriage, you have the 7 bandis, Vedokta Bandi, Vyavasai Bandi, all of that, Beti Bandi, Roti Bandi, all of these which nobody had thought of at those times. And at the same time, you had a Gandhi who was saying, I believe in the Varna system. I believe that, without that, the edifice of Hinduism will collapse. And on that, Dr. Ambedkar and Gandhi had those fights, and Ambedkar actually found common cause in a lot of things that Savarkar did. So I think today, when people talk like this without any basis, it really pains me that, especially if you know the facts. Before I used to, go on those Twitter wars and fights and so on. But these days, even if media people call me for debates, I said there is no point, because you can try to wake up someone who is sleeping, but you can't wake up someone who is pretending to sleep. And bhains ke aage been baja ke koi fayda nahi. So I think it's a tragedy that someone of this stature, whose sacrifices to this country, not only of him, but his entire family, when he and his elder brother Baba Rao are sent to Kalapani, the women of the family, Yeshu Vahini and his own wife Yamuna Tai, the kind of social ostracization they faced. All the property was confiscated. Savarkar's degrees were taken away from him. On his paper, he was only a metric pass, whereas he had actually done his Ferguson College, bachelor's, and then Grey Inn in London, he did his law degree. Everything taken away. No means of survival. Came from a zamindari family here in Bhagur, and all of that also taken away. Literally, even the utensils in the house being taken away and pawned. Imagine how those women, for about 13, 14 years, how they would have actually managed to survive. You had Bhikaji Kama, Madam Bhikaji Kama, who from Paris used to send money for the upkeep of these families. Today, discounting all that, and I'm not even going into the tortures in Kalapani, all that Kolhuka Bell, the defecation, urination in your own cell, all that is another level of grotesque, behavior. Just this, today we so happily, we are in a free country, sitting in air-conditioned rooms, we distribute certificates of patriotism and traitor to anybody we want. I mean, how ungrateful a nation can we be?
Absolutely. You know what really, really bugs me is that the great-grandson of a man who spent one night in police custody in some jail and he couldn't sleep down, so he got his father to write a letter saying that please rescue my darling son, he cannot sleep on the floor. His great-grandson is talking about Savarkar and the tortures that he faced, and he has the temerity to say almost anything about him.
Maharashtra gave a reply to that.
Yeah, and I am so glad. Another thing, I mean, I am digressing a little bit. What hurts me personally is that the man, Swatantraveer Savarkar, in the latter part of his life, fought unceasingly towards the abolition of caste prejudices. No one has done more except for maybe Ambedkar, for the rights of the downtrodden than Savarkar has. And still today, there are enough people in this country who call Savarkar a Brahmin leader. ह्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त दैव दुर्विलास कुठला असूच शकत नाही. Very, very, very unfortunate. Anyway, moving on to your next book, which is Brave Hearts of Bharat. Again, you have often said that the history of Bharat is very Delhi-centric, and we need to reclaim it. We need to tell the stories of heroes and heroines from all over the country, and I think that was the thought behind the book. Now, my question to you is that when you start looking for such figures, they are every state, every district, you will find 5 such figures. Yes. So what made you prioritize these few stories?
Well, so in the previous session, we were talking, Shefali, about how our history is shown to us as a long litany of failures, of battles we have lost. I think even the IAS exams, the kind of things that the people learn are only these battles we lost. So as I said earlier, if we are still around as a only pre-Bronze Age era civilization, there would have been wars we won. And so for me, it was to find out these 15 is what I chose, but it was scattered across India and also across various time spans. Very important to note that, within 60, 70 years of the death of the Prophet Muhammad, you had the caliph's armies going all over, to Islamize vast countries. The Sassanid Empire, the Byzantine Empire, all these collapse. You had right from the Atlantic, the shores of the Atlantic through Middle East, Central Asia and Northern Africa, up to the gates of India, it was Islamized. Now, the first invasion, Arab invasion of Sindh happens in 712. Now, from then to establish the first Islamic Sultanate in India, it took them 500 years. 1206 with the Delhi slave dynasty that came there. So for 500 years, our poor ancestors were pushing them back, and beyond the narrow strip of Sindh, the Arabs could not conquer much. And later the Turkic invasions under Ghazni and Ghori. So who are these people? Why don't we know about them? So Lalitaditya Mukta Pida of the Karkota dynasty of Kashmir. So naam bhi, I think it's so long and difficult to remember for anyone, but he was called the second Samudragupta, who ensured that the Arabs were defeated every time, and that's why they couldn't go beyond that narrow strip of Sindh. And contrary to what we think, they were fighting among each other, but when it came to an external enemy, they recognized that here was an external enemy, so they made alliances. Lalitaditya with a Yashovarman in Kannauj. There was Maharana Bappa Rawal in Mewad, a great, today Rawalpindi is actually named after him, but Bappa Rawal doesn't even have a recall in people's minds. Chandragupta, Vikramaditya, who was a Chalukya ruler, then Danti Durga, who was a Rashtrakuta ruler, all these people, northern, western, and southern India, jointly pushing back all of them pushing back invaders from the west. So there was something to that. You have a person like Rani Naiki Devi in Gujarat, a Chalukya Solanki queen.
She is from Goa.
She's from Goa, yes. Yeah, Goa Kadamba dynasty princess. She loses her husband. She's a regent of a small little prince. And at that time, Muhammad Ghori decides that let me attack Goa. It's anyway, Gujarat, because it's anyway under a woman, so I can get it easily. Now, do we know that she actually managed to completely vanquish Muhammad Ghori in a battle called the Battle of Kasarhada in 1178, so much so that Ghori never turned back towards Gujarat because he was so ashamed of being vanquished by a lady. So, Naiki Devi there. Then in my state, in Karnataka, you had this Abbakka, the 4 Abbakka queens who defeated the Portuguese every time. In neighboring Kerala, there was Martanda Varma who defeated the Dutch East India Company in a battle called the Battle of Kolachal, which ensured that the Dutch hegemony, they were as colonial as the British, that collapsed. The pepper trade collapsed for them. And in distant northeast, you had Lachit Barphukan, of the Ahom commander, who in a battle called the Battle of Saraighat actually defeats the biggest imperial army that Aurangzeb sends to defeat him. And literally the subaltern winning this battle with limited equipment and whatever they had, primitive technology, they defeat such a big army. Lachit Borphukan, thankfully now the government of India and the government of Assam are celebrating the 400th birth anniversary of this man. But as I said, we couldn't name two. Chakradhwaj Singha is one name of a Ahom ruler if somebody asks later. So these stories I thought were very, very important because I think history is not about jingoism, Mera Bharat Mahan, everything about our past is great. No, not really. But there are aspects that our ancestors did, whether it is the Kshatriya spirit that we showed and that emasculation, that removing of that Kshatriya spirit in us. I think that is the conflict which sadly the Satyagraha movement also somewhere acerbated, and what the British did by taking away our arms. And there I think again Savarkar and Gandhi, when they meet in London as young boys, students in this one. It's during the Dashera festival, and Gandhi comes up on the dais and talks about how, I will not talk about politics, I'll talk about Ram Rajya and how to establish that. Immediately after that, Savarkar comes up and he says, see, Ram Rajya was also established after Prabhu Ram killed Ravan. He didn't go and sit in Satyagraha in front of him and say, Sita ko wapas kar do. So, and we are talking all this in the midst of Dashera, where Durga Saptashati mein, all the 700 verses, the Devi is annihilating evil. It's a bloodbath of all Shumbha, Nishumbha, all these Dhumralochana and all these asuras. And in the Gita, Prabhu Krishna himself says that if the opponent is your father, brother, teacher, if he's on the path of adharma, then he should be killed. The means don't matter, the end matters. So I think the fundamental difference there always was, is the British Raj illegitimate? Is it adharmic? If it is adharmic, the means don't matter. Getting them out, Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed, is par for the course. So I think these stories also of valor, de di hame azadi bina khadga bina bhal. No, not at all. Lot of khadags, lot of bhals, lot of people dying in Port Blair, lot of blood flowing down is what we didn't get freedom. हमने आज़ादी छीन के ली. We did not, आज़ादी हमको दे दी गई नहीं. किसी ने हम पे मेहरबानी करके आज़ादी नहीं दी. हमने आज़ादी लड़ के छीनी. I think that spirit is so important. And this spirit was there not just during the freedom struggle. This book, Brave Hearts, actually talks about those. And, of course, being somewhat of a feminist, for me...
I was coming to that, actually.
History should not be his story. It should also be her story. So like those women gramophone people, this also, about 15, out of the 15, 7 are women and 8 are men. I think their stories also deserves to be embellished in golden words in our history books.
You know, that's very interesting. We have this narrative, I'm just segueing a little bit from there, that women in India, particularly Hindu women, were always oppressed. Hindu widows were forced to be burnt on their husband's pyre. They didn't have any political power or whatever. And you see then people like Sembian Mahadevi, who builds 14 temples after her husband passed away in the Chola kingdom. And not only that, she standardizes the Chola architecture, which later kings build upon, and she has a sense of history. So when she rebuilds those temples, she actually saves the epigraphs that were in the earlier temples and establishes them on these temples. So not only did she have the power, she had the money, she had the wherewithal to build temples. And not just her. There is a temple in Sirpur, Chhattisgarh, which is built by a queen for her late husband. Even the Patan stepwell is built by a queen for her late husband. There are countless stories like that. And then we have Ahilya Bai Holkar, who was a widow and who basically carried the weight of a kingdom on her shoulder. So I'm really glad that your book talks about women and the story of strong women. But do you feel that this narrative, was there some sort of truth in the sense that women were stopped from taking political power? What is the truth?
There's no one size fits all in India. In that book, there is a reference to Ahilya Bai Holkar. There's also Rudrama Devi in Warangal. Yeah. Her father actually makes her the successor. There's a Putrika Yagya which is done where she is coronated as the successor. So, but there are also episodes of suppression and so on, which no one can wish it away. As I said, history should be a balanced narrative where it's not empty jingoism that sab kuch acha tha, us zamane mein there was a golden age. No, it gives you that space to also learn from the mistakes of the past.
Okay. Now we move to your next book, which is your penultimate book before the Tipu Sultan book came out, which is the story of Kashi. And one important thing, I think that you make it very clear in the book that despite continuous waves of destruction, Kashi was raided, looted, destroyed by successive Islamic invaders. Hindus never forgot or never give up their claim on the site. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
It's a long story. In very brief, I will mention that when we think of Kashi Vishwanath Mandir, we only know about Aurangzeb destroying it. But right from Kutubuddin Aibak in 1194, then you had the Razia Sultan. We romanticize her with, Hema Malini and Dharmendra and all of that. But she also, there's a Razia Masjid in Kashi, which is supposedly the place of the original Vishwanath Mandir. Jaunpur Nawabs, the Sikandar Lodhi, all these people over varied centuries were destroying the temple. Now the natural question would be that if once destroyed, what were the next successive iconoclastic wave? What were they destroying? That is where the answer is that despite all these attacks, the Hindus of India never gave up, not just of Kashi. And to rebuild Kashi, you had, just after Kutubuddin Aibak's destruction, right from Bengal, you had a Vishwarupa of the Sena dynasty coming and planting a long minar in the heart of Kashi, saying this is our Nagari of Vishwanath. He could not rebuild the temple, but at least stamping your authority. Then from Karnataka, you had a Hoysala ruler, Veera Narasimha III, who donates an entire village called Hebbale, saying the proceeds of this village will go for all the yatris who will have to pay the jizya tax to go and visit this one. A South Indian ruler did not think, ye to North India hai, yahan pe Hindi hai, we are different nations. They managed to do that. A Gujarati businessman called Seth Vastupal, he reconstructs a magnificent temple. So all parts of India, that Hindu consciousness obviously was there. None of them thought, this is so far away, how does it matter to us? So a nation and a nation state can have common boundaries, codified laws, but the nation that exists is a common emotional connect which connects everyone. So when Adi Shankaracharya went on his Digvijay, why did he have to choose the four cardinal points in the south, Sringeri, Puri, Dwarka and Badrinath? He could have just been in Kerala and done whatever he did. But he circumscribed the geography, the sacred geography of India. Similarly, all our Shakti Peeths, which are scattered across, the Bara Jyotirling, everything gives us the sense that, the extent of the sacred geography is this. And that is what the Vishnu Purana very clearly says. Uttaram yat samudrasya himadrashchaiva dakshinam varshatad bharatam nama bharati yatra santati. So this consciousness of this nation or a sacred geography was there, and Kashi's story actually exemplifies it. So when today we see people like Advocate Vishnu Shankar Jain and Hari Shankar Jain ji fighting for it, it is not something that starts now or some political party or Sangh Parivar. I mean, they are carrying the baton on. But when Kashi Vishwanath Mandir was destroyed, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was alive. And it is said that his mother, she chided him and said, if you are man enough, the duty of your life should be to reconstruct Kashi Vishwanath Mandir. And I think Baba Sahib Purandare and others mention that when he is almost going to pass away, people say, Shivaraya, go on your eternal journey. He says, how can I go in peace when my Kashi Vishwanath is still imprisoned? And so that becomes the foundation of the Maratha Empire. All the Peshwas, whether it is Nana Sahib, whether it is Madhavrao Peshwa, he has a will also which has, liberating Kashi, Mathura, Gaya, Prayag, Ayodhya. These are the sacred responsibilities of all my, descendants. And so that's why Ahilyabai Holkar coming in that succession. And today what we see is the temple she has built. But, when we are reclaiming some of these spaces, I think we are also doing something very important, which is our Pitra Rina. The Rina we have for our ancestors, our Pitrus, when they did not give up on these places, when they fought and kept that resilience going, what stops us today from doing that? So this book actually traces the entire holy past of Kashi and all these iconoclastic attempts and the resilience to rebuild it till the current times, where an ASI survey had to be done to show that that is a mandir. Wahan pe to haath kangan ko RC kiya. The first thing you go there is you see the Paschimi Diwar ka Khandahar, which is built by a Maharashtrian Brahmin, Narayan Bhatt, who came from this part of the country during his time, during Akbar's time. So that the avashesh that you see there are 16th century temple, but we still go through the legal process, we show the ASI survey, but you know, it's a fight that is unfolding every passing day.
Now we come to your latest book on Tipu Sultan, the massive 900-page tome. And I know you've spoken about this in the morning and said that it's 15 years of your research and you know everything you had in it, you have given into the book. But you are a very objective history writer, and no matter what your personal convictions may be, I have never seen them affecting the quality of your writing. And I say that as a complete, not as your friend, as a completely unbiased reader.
Thank you.
So, when you were writing this book on Tipu, who is a very, very, again, like Swatantraveer Savarkar, a very polarizing figure in another way, and you were writing a 900-page tome on his life, so how did you manage to be as objective as possible, first of all?
So I think itihas, it is history, is ye aise hua tha. I think we just need to, a historian's job is to illuminate the archive, bring facts and records to the common public who may not have the interest or the skill to do that work. So when it came to Tipu, I come from a state which actually had the perversity of celebrating a Tipu Jayanti. You know, and this whole Mahima Mandan of him being the first freedom fighter of India, ironically done by a set of people who say there was no country only called India till the British came. Nationalism is a cuss word. They say he was a nationalist. He fought. You can't have it both ways. Decide this way or the other. If he was a nationalist fighting for freedom, was there an India then? Will you accept that? No, you'll subterfuge on both sides. So he was no doubt a very, very brave soldier. He had immense hatred for the British. He died fighting in war on 4th of May 1799 in Srirangapatna. But to conflate him to a freedom fighter, I think that will be a stretch, because to defeat the British, he was actually taking the help of the French, who were no less colonial than the British. And he was also writing to, you know, the larger Ummah, the Muslim Brotherhood, on faith-based support. He was writing to Zaman Shah of Afghanistan, saying, invade India, and 2 years, it's a clear prescription. 2 years, let us fight this war. First year, we will flush out the entire North India from the Kafirs, the Marathas, the Rajputs, the Jats and others, Sikhs. And then the second year, we'll flush out the south of India from the Kafirs. And then we will meet midway and distribute this entire subcontinent and make it an Islamic caliphate. So by some stretch of imagination or destiny, if he had won, today we would be having this conversation in French or in Persian, because we would have been a French colony or we would have been an Islamic republic. Both of us would have different names. A lot of things would have changed. So I think we need to look at that in perspective, while not denying him the fact that both father and son, Hyder and Tipu, they fought 4 wars, 4 Anglo-Mysore wars, and it took the British 30 years to vanquish Mysore. And Hyder particularly, he scripted unprecedented victories for Mysore. But when this Tipu Jayanti thing happened, Shefali, they were... Naturally, Congress does something, the BJP will oppose it. That is okay. Wo tu main, that let them go on with. But communities in Karnataka today, and even in Kerala, they came out in protest. You know, you have the Mandyam Iyengar community in Karnataka, where 200 years, 250 years after, they to this day do not celebrate Diwali on the same day that all of us celebrate, because on that particular day, on Narak Chaturdashi, 700 men, women and children of that community were ruthlessly trampled to death in a temple. They were, you know, given a false assurance, brought for a feast, feast for Diwali, and while they were eating, the doors are closed and the elephants are let loose, exactly like what General Dyer did at Jallianwala Bagh. So I shudder to think, will we have a Dyer Jayanti
This
somewhere?
happened in Melkote, right?
No, in Srirangapatna. They were,
okay.
It's conflated with Melkote, but they were called the Mandyam Iyengars. Okay. So there is that wound that lives after 200 years. Similarly, the Christians in Mangalore, you know, almost 60,000, 80,000 of them dragged, tied to the feet of elephants from Mangalore to Srirangapatna, 300 kilometers, pregnant women being made to walk, many of them delivering babies on the way, many dying, there's no arrangements for funerals, corpses are eaten by dogs and jackals, and they come there and then they are forced to convert. And the Kodavas, the Coorg, the valorous people in Coorg, who never, you know, they and the Nayars in Malabar, these two communities, very, very, you know, warrior classes, they gave it back, they never got subjugated. as I mentioned earlier, to one of his commanders, Zainul Abidin Shustri, he actually says, when you go to Coorg, don't convert just the living prisoners, even convert the dead bodies. So dead bodies being circumcised and converted to Islam. And the Coorgis, even to this day, on 12th of December, they commemorate it as, Martyrs' Day. Because again, like the Iyengars, they were all brought ostensibly for negotiations, and they were asked to come unarmed. And when they came to this place called Devati Param, they were all disarmed and, stabbed in the back. So, and similarly the Nayars. So these intergenerational trauma and wounds that these communities carry, that is there even to this day. But at the same time, as I said, his bravery, some of his measures like the rockets that, Mysore made under him, improvised the existing technology to make it effective. The products, Mysorean products getting a market abroad, those things are also there. I mean, those are the positive. And as I said, the last bastion maybe of resistance against British. Those things are there, but ultimately the social report card of a person, and how do communities today remember them? And so Christians in Mangalore, I don't think have anything common with the BJP, or I would assume. But them also coming on the streets, and there also, Ash Wednesday, which was their holy time, that day is chosen. So those who say, those days all kings were violent, it is a part of the pre-modern era. Certainly violence was part of war. But some people were more violent than the other, and specific targeting of communities based on their identity. And if Naraka Chaturdashi or Ash Wednesday has to be chosen so that you culturally also subjugate Hindus and Christians who don't belong to your faith, then, how do you celebrate them? And there is no scope for ambiguity here. His own letters are talking about this. This man used to have very vivid dreams. So even, and Girish Karnad from my state writes a play called The Dreams of Tipu Sultan, where he is valorized as anything. But I actually got the original dream register. He used to write in his own hand. Apparently, he used to spend about 2 hours every morning in his toilet. And sitting there, he would remember what all he saw the previous night and write it down in Persian. So that original manuscript was actually there in London. And in that, if you see, I got it psychoanalyzed with a psychiatrist, because I think the dreams are an index of your subconscious mind. Violent dreams. Everything is about, the kafir. Suddenly Prophet Muhammad appears and says, go so far, break that temple, break that church. Marathas are shown as effeminate people. There is one dream where in a katora there are shaligram, which Vaishnavas do puja to, and some badam. So in his dream, he has seen himself rotating that katora, and somehow in the dream, all the saligrams have changed to badam. So in the morning when he writes that dream out, he says, I think Allah and the Prophet want me to convert all the saligram followers to badam, which is Islam. So, these kind of psychopathic, interpretations of his own dreams, when so much evidence is there, his manifesto says, my kingdom is for the annihilation of the kafir. The sword that he had, the sword of Tipu Sultan, the inscription on that says the main reason for this sword is to drench itself in the blood of the kafir. When these things are written, then why do we provide cover fire? Why do Irfan Habibs of the world, the Aligarh project to whitewash Tipu? And you had people like Irfan Habib, Mohibul Hassan, I'm taking names and telling all these people whom I have tried to contradict with facts in my book. And that's why it's run to 900 pages, out of which about 150 are endnotes and bibliography and footnotes. So nothing is being said due to prejudice, due to I feel he's a bad guy. No, I don't have any opinion about him, good, bad. I may have something personally, but it's not going to come on paper. So for every claim you make, a historian has that quintessential responsibility to substantiate it with facts. We spoke about fake news earlier. Fake history also can be countered only and only with facts and references and your research.
You know what's the saddest part of this? Every Islamic invader who has been a Butchikan, who has destroyed temples, who has destroyed the murtis, has kept copious records, and they have very proudly mentioned that they have destroyed temples, they have destroyed murtis or whatever. They have not been shy about it because for them it's a badge of honor. So today's historians are actually saying, no, you were wrong, you were not a Butchikan, even though you say yourself 600 years ago that you were. That is the sad part of whitewashing of history. Now, which brings me to the next question, and we are coming to the end of this session. Uh, you have shown the path to a lot of aspiring historians, and you have shown what solid scholarship and good writing can do in terms of dispelling the lies and the fake stories. So how do you now plan to, your writing career is one thing, but how do you now plan to mentor other younger people who want to come into this field and who want to be aspiring historians, who want to be storytellers? Is there anything that you're planning?
Yes, a lot. So, in fact, during the second COVID wave, I was very badly infected. I think I almost narrowly lost my life. 95% of my lungs were infected, and the doctors had given up all hope of survival. Left and right, I was seeing people dying in front of my eyes in those horrible times. By some stroke of luck, I came back alive. And if you have, I think, a near-death experience, something in you changes. I can understand how Kala Pani could have, changed Veer Savarkar after that experience. So here, I don't know, my whole perspective towards life, what I'm looking for in life, everything changed, to be very honest. Till then, of course, personal glory, all of that did matter to me as much it matters to everyone else. But after that, I thought there is some purpose with which I've been sent back. And in my lifetime, and I got deeply conscious of my mortality. We are all going, every second that is there ahead of us is a bonus. We all know that, and as the Yudhishthir Yaksha Prashna, he says the biggest surprise in life is we plan for the next 50 years, whereas we don't know this night are we going to still be around. So I think with the limited time we have at our disposal, I thought, if I just keep writing, I don't know how much I will be able to write, 10, 20, 30, 40 books, no idea. But will that be sufficient? And so now they've started a new foundation called the Foundation for Indian Historical and Cultural Research, FIHCR. And the idea of this organization is to do precisely that, which is to foster new scholarship in Indian history. And how do we do that? We have a couple of verticals, and I'll take a minute to explain that. One is we've instituted a fellowship in the name of Sir Jadunath Sarkar, the much forgotten nationalist historian like he and R.C. Majumdar and others. So through a nationwide search of talent, we sent out applications, and we've selected about 9 scholars, and they'll be given a suitable stipend of about 15 lakhs over the course of the year, and a lot of mentorship, help to write. And the ask from them is at the end of that 1 year, you have to come up with a publish-worthy manuscript. So first year, 9 books, maybe next year, 10 books. Now in 10 years, you may have 100 books. So till then, in all our non-left conclaves, we will have one voodoo doll of Romila Thapar, Irfan Habib, D.N. Jha, Marxist distortion of Indian history. That is one topic, and till the cows come home, we will be talking that. Which is meaningless. I mean, complaining. Ya to unpe you blame the Marxist historians, or you blame Narendra Modi ji ne kuch nahi kiya. Okay, it's not his priority. Forget it. Take it as a given. But you, what are you doing other than complaining? And when you have the wherewithal. So that is what I thought. At least let us make this small little, difference. So every year we'll have more books. So even today, you may dislike her as much as you want, but Professor Romila Thapar's books are the ultimate books when it comes to the UPSC exam, the universities. Where is the alternative ancient Indian history that anyone from the non-left has written? Seminars and talks are not going to help. Twitter war is not going to help. Finally, it has to come in a book which will last. Those are also important. On Twitter, you fight and do all that. That is okay, but that is not scholarship that will last. So this, through this fellowship, we plan to institute some. Then we are also, there's a projects team where we are planning a multidisciplinary team of scholars incubated in educational universities. So the first project is with Nalanda, and the theme is the rise and fall of Buddhism in India. So why did Buddhism disappear from the land of its origin? As the other side keeps saying, just as Islamic invaders, the Brahminism destroyed Buddhism. Is it true? What do the primary sources actually say? We have to investigate that. But our history is written in languages we don't understand. Sanskrit, Pali, Prakrit, Sen Tamil, all these kind of languages which we don't know. So as a modern historian, to learn all that, it will take, I think, 2-3 lifetimes. So I thought, can we not have an interdisciplinary group where a historian talks to a Sanskrit Pandit, a Tibetan scholar, Pali, Prakrit scholar, an archaeologist, maybe a geologist, a geneticist, all of them to look at investigate the primary sources, and the outcome would be book series and journal articles and all of that. So that is one vertical. Then we have another one which is called Yuva, which is I think very important, that how do we make Indian history interesting, exciting, inspiring and also accessible for children and young adults. Don't be preachy to them. Talk to them in the language they understand, through the medium they understand. If it's animation videos, if it is small, Instagram reels or whatever it is they get, let it be meticulous research, not WhatsApp history, but let it be accessible to all of them. So we have instituted a Sri Aurobindo National Essay Competition for children of classes 6 to 9 to write their essays, and we'll publish some of the best essays and some get prizes. So to make history interesting and exciting for them. And one more vertical on the digital humanities, on how can you use modern technology? Can you use AI to digitize some of the manuscripts, like the Archive of Indian Music, which I did there. So I think it's a joint, bringing together of so many strands, and we've been very fortunate to get support from Bhavesh Agarwal of Ola, who said we'll support you and help you put this entire team together. But yeah, vitamin M is always needed, so more and more of help on that front, because I'm telling you, the only and only alternative to distorted history is more and more and more scholarship. There can be no two ways about that. Nothing else can rectify what we see of our history. As I said earlier, history is a mirror in which we identify ourselves. Now if that is distorted, at least what we studied was distorted, we should hope at least our future generations should not, our grandchildren are not studying the same bakwas, and they at least know, if someone asks who are the two Ahom Rajas, they'll have some answer to that question. So it is with this idea that FIHCR has been created. So FIHCR.com is the website. We have opportunities for internships, for people to work with us, because we want to make it a people's movement. It can't be a top-down approach, some government sitting in Delhi, teaching all this. I think it has to be a bottoms-up, a people's movement, local histories, local, warriors, all that also needs to come out. I'll end with, I think when we were doing this, there was this very interesting fable of a jungle actually being on fire, in a forest fire, and there were two sparrows who were going there, and there was a nearby lake, and they were picking up, little in their beaks, they were picking up water from that lake and putting it into the fire. Now, somebody who saw it said, what an idiot both of you are. I mean, do you think with your beaks you're going to extinguish this forest fire? They said, no, we know we can't extinguish the forest fire, but at least when we die or when we go to sleep, our conscience is clear that we tried and did something, we didn't complain. So my only request and my only, plea to all of you Savarkar Premis, to all, nationalistic people, is let us quit complaining. At least today we have a favorable social, political, cultural climate. Instead of just wasting time, criticizing someone who hasn't done something or who has done something bad, let us all do our little bit like those two sparrows. And I think that will go a long way in making a difference. And we can go to sleep with our conscience clear. Thank you.
That was a wonderful thought. I think in the morning, Deepak Karanjikar also spoke about it, that the way to make somebody else's line smaller is not to erase it, but to make your own line bigger. And I think, do we have time for questions? Okay. Yeah, maybe one or two questions if anybody wants to ask. Yes.
सर आजकल संविधान की बात चल रही है. मैं जोशी हिल जी, आजकल संविधान की बात चल रही है. आपके लास्ट इंटरव्यू मैंने कालिदास में सुना था, सावरकर जी ने 1937 में एक संविधान बनाई थी.
37 में नहीं, 45 में. No, 1945 में हिंदू महासभा ने एक संविधान बनाया था, the Constitution of the Free Hindustan State. And actually अगर आप देखें जो फाइनल संविधान बना, secularism, the union government के positions versus the state government, legislature, judiciary, वो सारी चीज़ें इस संविधान में already था. उसके actually extracts were there. I put it in my second volume. In fact, Constituent Assembly में कुछ लोगों ने इसको उद्धृत भी किया था और उन्होंने बोला था कि हिंदू महासभा should be given the kudos to that they have deliberated on these aspects and actually brought out a parallel constitution which was different from the Government of India Act which the British were trying to steamroll. And उनका हर वक्तव्य, even as the president of Hindu Mahasabha, वो वही कहते थे कि the majority will not get any extra privileges because they are more in number. The minority will not get concessions because they are less in number. In that Hindu Rashtra which is made out to be a demon, जो सबको निगल जाएगा सारे अल्पसंख्यकों को, तो उसमें उन्होंने वही कहा था कि everybody is equal in the eyes of the law. आप अपने घर में पूजा नमाज जो चाहे आप कीजिए, पर don't bring it into the public space. And everyone is completely equal in the eyes of the government and in the eyes of the law. तो इससे ज़्यादा सर्वपंथ समभाव और क्या हो सकता है? And I think secularism is a very bad word. It doesn't fit into the Indian context. हम धर्म निरपेक्ष, धर्म से हम कैसे यहाँ निरपेक्ष हो सकते हैं? यतो धर्म ततो जय, which is the Supreme Court का the tagline. Are we going to become nirpeksh from that dharma also? Dharma is not religion. So I think this aspect, Savarkar ji and the Hindu Mahasabha had stressed very, very clearly. उसके बावजूद हम उनको Islamophobic ये वो आज की उपाधियां देके उनका अपमान करते हैं.
Last question, if anybody has. Yes.
मैंने पढ़ा है, कहीं सुना है, समझो कि मैसूर के राजा ने he refused to merge with India after freedom.
Mysore was the first state in India to merge with the union.
अच्छा, और मैसूर के राजा ने he had shot down number of freedom fighters.
No, I don't think that is true.
That was what I heard.
No, unfortunately.
What is the source, sir? From where did you hear it? What is the source?
मेरे पढ़ने में आया या मेरे सुनने में आया?
नहीं, मतलब कहाँ से पढ़ा आपने?
अभी ऐसे ही
मतलब किताब, न्यूज़पेपर, सोशल मीडिया, व्हाट्सएप अपडेट, क्या पढ़ा आपने? कुछ तो पढ़ा होगा.
शायद यूट्यूब पर सुना था मैंने.
ओके, ठीक. Well, thanks a lot. You've been a wonderful audience and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Vikram.
Thank you all so
and
very much.
And once again, congratulations for the award. अभी उठिएगा नहीं, बस 5 मिनट में अपने संवादक की भूमिका से बाहर निकल के आई एम गोइंग टू गेट इनटू द क्यूरेटर भूमिका. एंड आई वुड लाइक टू जस्ट से, आई नो एवरीबडी इज टायर्ड, इट्स बीन अ लॉंग डे, बट देर इज समथिंग आय नीड टू से. हे दुसरं वर्ष आहे आयामचं, गोदावरी संवादचं, आणि ह्या दोन्ही वर्षात ही सेशन्स क्युरेट करताना मला अतिशय आनंद होतो आहे. एक तर इथला जो ऑडियन्स आहे त्यांना मला खरोखर दाद द्यायची आहे, कारण अतिशय समजणारा, विचार करणारा, वाचणारा ऑडियन्स आहे. म्हणजे संख्या आहेत चांगली, पण तशी ती नसती. आणि 15 माणसं असती आणि 15 माणसं जर तुमच्यासारखी असती तरी मला असं वाटलं असतं की आम्ही जे करतोय ते सफल झालं आहे. दुसरी गोष्ट, आयामची जी टीम आहे, म्हणजे मला मिलिंदजींनी काल सांगितलं होतं की तुम्ही आल्यानंतर जरा येऊन व्हेन्यूकडे अरेंजमेंट बघा. तर मी त्यांना सांगितलं की मला अरेंजमेंट बघायची काहीच गरज नाही आहे, कारण आयामची टीम कसं काम करते आणि नियोजन त्यांचं कसं इतकं योजनाबद्ध असतं हे मला माहिती आहे. मी गेल्या वर्षी त्याचा अनुभव घेतलेला आहे. त्याच्यामुळे मला इथे येऊन अरेंजमेंट्स बघायची काहीही गरज नाही आहे. माझा पूर्ण विश्वास आहे की ही अरेंजमेंट चांगलीच असेल आणि मला खात्री आहे की ह्याच्यानंतरही खूप अशीच चांगली अरेंजमेंट असेल. फक्त शेवटचा मुद्दा सांगते, मी येथे येताना मला कोणीतरी विचारलं होतं की तुम्ही हे सगळं कशासाठी करता, म्हणजे त्याचा उद्देश काय आहे की इतक्या लोकांना बोलवायचं, त्यांना बोलायला लावायचं आणि असा इव्हेंट करायचा, त्याने खरोखर काही फरक पडतो का? ह्या प्रश्नाचं उत्तर ॲक्च्युली मी नाही देऊ शकत की फरक पडतो का, पण मला असं वाटतं की रविवारच्या पूर्ण दिवशी घरामध्ये सुट्टी घालवायची सोडून तुम्ही सगळे इतक्या मोठ्या संख्येने इथे आलेला आहात, सकाळपासून ते आता 8 वाजेपर्यंत बसलेला आहात, इथल्या प्रत्येक वक्त्याच्या भाषणाला तुम्ही भरभरून दाद दिलेली आहे. ह्याच्यावरून मला असं दिसतंय की हे जे काही होतं आहे ह्याचा काही ना काहीतरी पॉझिटिव्ह इम्पॅक्ट नक्कीच होतो आहे. आणि हे जे विचार तुम्ही आत्ता ऐकलेत त्या विचारांवर तुम्ही घरी जाऊन परत मनन कराल, त्याच्यावरती काहीतरी काम कराल. आणि 200 लोकांमधनं 2 अशी माणसं मिळाली की ज्यांना असं वाटलं हे भाषण ऐकल्यानंतर आपल्यालाही काहीतरी केलं पाहिजे, आपल्यालाही काहीतरी लिहिलं पाहिजे, आपल्यालाही काहीतरी क्रिएट केलं पाहिजे. तर मी म्हणेन की आम्ही जे काही करतोय ते इट इज वर्थ इट. त्यामुळे परत एकदा सर्व नाशिककरांचे मनापासून आभार. मला खरोखर आनंद होतो इथे येताना. मी 3 लिटररी फेस्टिवल्स क्युरेट करते. एक कोइंबतूरचं वेस्टर्न घाट्स लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल ज्याचं यावर्षीचं 5वं वर्ष होतं. आयामचं हे 2रं वर्ष आहे आणि मार्चमध्ये चेन्नई लिटरेचर फेस्टिवलचं 2रं वर्ष असेल. पण प्रत्येक वेळेला मी नाशिकमध्ये येते तेव्हा मला खरोखर मनापासून आनंद होतो, कारण इथला जो ऑडियन्स आहे तो खरोखर अत्यंत डिसर्निंग, अत्यंत रसिक आणि चांगलं वाचणारा, चांगला विचार करणारा, चांगलं काहीतरी करू इच्छिणारा ऑडियन्स आहे. असं नाही आहे की मी हे सगळं भाषण प्रत्येक ठिकाणी हेच सांगते, खरोखर मनापासून सांगते. धन्यवाद.
थँक्यू सो मच मॅम. आज संपूर्ण शोचं क्युरेटर म्हणून त्यांनी काम केलं आणि तेही उत्तमरित्या पार पाडलं. त्यांच्यासाठी पुन्हा एकदा जोरदार टाळ्या झाल्या पाहिजे. आणि विक्रम सर, ॲट दी एंड आय जस्ट वॉन्ट टू से फ्रॉम लर्निंग हिस्ट्री, फ्रॉम रायटिंग हिस्ट्री to now creating history, your journey has truly been phenomenal and inspirational for all of us here. Am I right, guys? Yeah, so please, he deserves a huge round of applause here. आणि हा इतका मोठा कार्यक्रम यशस्वीरित्या पार पडण्यामागे सगळ्यात महत्त्वाचा, खारीचा पण मोलाचा वाटा बऱ्याच जणांचा असतो. सो त्यांचे आभार हे मानायलाच हवे. त्यामुळे त्यांचे आभार मानण्यासाठी मी मंचावर आमंत्रित करतो आयाम नाशिकचे ट्रस्टी श्री मिलिंद कुलकर्णी यांना.
आभार प्रदर्शनाचा कार्यक्रम आहे, 2 मिनिटात संपवतो. आजच्या कार्यक्रमाला आपले प्रमुख पाहुणे म्हणून नाशिक जिल्ह्याचे जिल्हाधिकारी श्री जलज शर्मा सर आणि नाशिक जिल्ह्याचे पोलीस आयुक्त श्री संदीप कर्णिक सर हे आपल्या व्यस्त वेळापत्रकातून वेळ काढून आपल्या कार्यक्रमाला उपस्थित राहिले. त्याबद्दल त्या दोघांचेही मी आयाम नाशिकच्या वतीने आभार मानतो. आपले आजचे स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर सन्मान पुरस्कार्थी श्री विक्रमजी संपत हे आयाम नाशिकच्या विनंतीवरून 2ऱ्यांदा नाशिकमध्ये आले. आपण 2021मध्ये त्यांचा मुलाखतीचा कार्यक्रम घेतला होता. सरांचं तसंही स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकरांमुळे नाशिकवर प्रेम आहेच आणि आता ते आयामवर असलेलं प्रेमही दृढ होत चाललं आहे. त्याबद्दल सरांचे मनापासून आभार. श्री आनंद नरसिंहन सर आणि रुबिका लियाकतजी या दोघंही जणं दिल्लीहून खास एका दिवसासाठी नाशिकला आलेत. खरं तर आज रविवार आहे, त्यांचा हक्काचा सुट्टीचा दिवस असतो, तरी पण त्यांनी नाशिककरांसाठी वेळ काढला. त्यामुळे तमाम नाशिककर आणि आयाम नाशिक यांच्या वतीने त्या दोघांचेही मनापासून आभार. ॲडव्होकेट आशिष सोनवणे, दीपकजी करंजीकर तर आपले नाशिकचेच आहेत. वैशालीताई करमरकर मला आम्ही 1.5 महिन्यापूर्वी पुण्यामध्ये भेटलो एका बैठकीच्या निमित्ताने. तेव्हाच त्याच्या आधीच 1-2 दिवस त्यांचा आयामबरोबरचा कार्यक्रम इथला सहभाग निश्चित झालेला होता. त्याही खरं तर खूप मला त्यांची म्हणजे घरची अडचण माहिती आहे. तेवढा वेळ काढून त्या खूप लांबचा प्रवास करून परत नाशिकला आल्यात. त्याबद्दल मी नुसते ताईंचेच नाही तर ताईंबरोबर श्री करमरकर पण आले. दोघांचेही मी मनापासून आभार मानतो. ओंकार दाभाडकर आपल्यामध्ये आलेत, मुंबईहून आलेत, त्यांचे मनापासून आभार. अभिजितजी जोग, सौ जोग हे दोघंही आलेत. मागच्याही वर्षी दोघं आले होते. हे सगळ्या लोकांचं आयामवरचं प्रेम बघून खरंच आम्हाला भरून येतं. आणि सगळ्यात महत्त्वाचं म्हणजे शेफालीताई, गेले 2 वर्ष म्हणजे जवळपास 2.5-3 वर्ष झाले असेल आम्ही सतत संपर्कात असतो. मी त्यांना बऱ्याचदा वक्त्यांसाठी सांगत असतो, कारण नाशिकमधले आपल्या लोकांना जे काही राष्ट्रीय पातळीवरचे वक्ते आहेत त्यांच्याशी थेट संपर्क नसतो आपला. तो संपर्क करणं, इथल्या कार्यक्रमाची पूर्ण रूपरेषा, विषय आखणी याच्यामध्ये ताईची खूप मोलाची मदत होत असते. ती याही पुढे होईल. ताईंचे तर म्हणजे आभार मानणं काही योग्य नाही, ते शी इज फॅमिली विथ आयाम आय थिंक. सो तरी पण एक औपचारिकता म्हणून ताईंचे पण आभार. आपल्याला हा कार्यक्रम यशस्वी करण्यासाठी अनेक लोकांचं पाठबळ, आर्थिक पाठबळ लागतं, मानसिक पाठबळ लागतं. अनेक लोक असे आहेत नाशिकमधले, आपण ह्या कार्यक्रमाला नाशिककरांनी नाशिकसाठी केलेला कार्यक्रम असं म्हणत असतो. बेसिकली गोदावरी संवाद हा जो कार्यक्रम आहे याला आपण ते रूप देतो आहे की हा नाशिककरांचा कार्यक्रम आहे आणि सर्व विचारांच्या वक्त्यांचं, त्यांच्या विचारांचं आपल्या व्यासपीठावर स्वागत आहे. यावं, बोलावं, आपले विचार मांडावे, वादे संवादे आपण जे म्हणतो त्याच्या पद्धतीने हे करत असतो. आणि ह्या एवढ्या मोठ्या आयोजनासाठी साहजिक आयामला खूप आर्थिक पाठबळाची गरज असते. अनेक नाशिकमधले दाते आपल्याला मदत करत असतात. त्यामध्ये रिलायबल ऑटोटेकचे श्री देवेंद्रजी बापट आहेत, सारस्वत बँकेचे हेमंतजी राठी आहेत, विवेकजी गोगटे आहेत, नाईनपर्ल हॉस्पिटलचे डॉक्टर आघोर आणि असंख्य ज्ञात अज्ञात दाते जे आपला खारीचा वाटा ह्या आयोजनात उचलत असतात. त्या सर्वांचे मनापासून आभार. सभागृहात अनेक मान्यवर आहेत, त्यांचे आभार. नाशिककरांनी या कार्यक्रमाला, हा कार्यक्रम तसा खूप लांबतो कारण 10 ते 7, 7:30, 8 इतका वेळ होतो. तेवढ्या वेळ सर्व लोक इथे बसतात, ऐकतात, हे ज्ञानकण वेचतात आणि आपल्या आपल्या समाजामध्ये परत आपण ह्याचं ॲडव्होकसी करत असतो. या सर्व नाशिककरांचे मनापासून आभार. अनेक विद्यार्थी पण इथे बसून आहेत, त्यांचेही आभार. पत्रकार बंधूंनी ह्या कार्यक्रमाला कार्यक्रम पूर्व आणि कार्यक्रम पश्चात जी प्रसिद्धी दिली त्याबद्दल त्यांचे आभार. आणि सर्वात शेवटी गुरुदक्षिणा सभागृह हे आता आमचं एक दुसरं घर झालं आहे आयामचं, त्यामुळे त्याचं व्यवस्थापन आणि त्यांचे कर्मचारी यांचे मनापासून आभार. धन्यवाद. यानंतर रसिका नातू पसायदान म्हणेल, पसायदानानंतर कार्यक्रम संपेल. धन्यवाद.
आता विश्वात्मके देवे येणे वाग्यज्ञे तोषावे तोषोनी मज द्यावे पसाय दान जे खळांची व्यंकटी सांडो तया सत्कर्मी रती वाढो भूता परस्परे पडो मैत्र जीवांचे दुरितांचे तिमिर जाओ विश्वस्वधर्म सूर्ये पाहो जो जे वांछील तो तेला हो प्राणी जात वर्षत सकळ मंगळी ईश्वर निष्ठांची मांदियाळी अनवरत भूमंडळी भेट तू भूता चला कल्पतरूंचे आरव चेतना चिंतामणींचे गाव बोलते जे अर्णव पियुषांचे चंद्रमेजे लांछन मार्तंड जे तापहीन ते सर्वाही सदा सज्जन सोय रे हो तू किंबहुना सर्व सुखी पूर्ण होनी तिही लोकी माझी जो आदिपुरुखी अखंडित आणि ग्रंथोपजीविये विशेषी लोकीये दृष्टादृष्टविजये होवावे जी येथ म्हणे श्री विश्वेश्वराओ हा होईल दानपसाओ येणे वरे ज्ञान देवो सुखिया झाला.
खूप खूप धन्यवाद. आपल्या सगळ्यांच्या प्रतिसादामुळे हा सोहळा प्रचंड रंगतदार ठरला. आशा करतो हाच प्रतिसाद पुढच्या वर्षी सुद्धा आपला असेल. भेटूयात. तोपर्यंत दिस इज कल्पेश कुलकर्णी सायनिंग ऑफ फ्रॉम गोदावरी संवाद 2024. थँक्यू.